Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another thrill-packed episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. Today, the Von Erichs and Shawn Michaels documentaries. The one about tragedy was more fun to watch than the one about redemption. Plus, TKO's selling tickets to wrestling school. You can get flying mared by your favorite. All that and more today, and joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He'll put you in the Cobra Clutch for $40. Be great, Brian. Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. Going to wrestling school. Although not attending wrestling school. I guess those are two separate things.
Well, yeah, now you can just kibitz. You can just, am I screaming? It's one of those ear days where if I try to take a big old sniff and clear my sinuses, my ear is going to pop and then I won't be able to hear and see. It's kind of like when your tongue lops over your eye teeth and you can't see what you're saying. I'm trying to regulate my volume here. Am I screaming?
A little bit, but not too bad.
I'll bring it down because I want to save screaming for later. This is one of those days, young man, when we got a lot of stuff to talk about, all kinds of things to talk about, but you can't put it in any logical order because most of it makes no logical sense. Just look at it like that. So if you're listening to the program, if it's like the weather in the Ohio Valley. If you don't like what we're talking about, wait 5 minutes. It's going to change because this is all over the place here. But how's your day going?
So far, so good. A little busy, a little hectic. I got to get back to editing when we're done recording and return phone calls and emails and have something to eat.
Boy, you're a fun guy. You are just you need to.
It's fun.
What about when you take Swami out to walk in nature and you, a boy and his dog, romping through the leaves and the fields and the farms and the various cattle and things. And then you become a boy and his cow.
There was a big bear on the property last night. The cameras got it.
What?
Yeah, a big bear got on the property, just started walking around by the cars, and then it went in the yard, and it was here for a while. The cameras luckily got it the whole time, but I had to walk Swami because he was at the door scratching. I'm like, fuck, now?
What? No, wait a minute now.
So I went out there. They say bears don't like loud noises. I was just screaming like, ah! Ah! Thinking,
okay. We don't like loud noises either, but but wait a minute, you've got a bear in the yard, and don't you have an emergency puppy pad somewhere inside the house for when it's goddamn thunderstorming or fucking lightning and things? And
he rejects it. He has rejected the puppy pad since he was a puppy.
If there's a bear in the yard, he can reject on the fucking carpet rather than go out in the yard for either one of you with a bear out there.
I was on the other side of the property. I thought I would be safe if I just yelled enough. And
how big's the fucking property?
I had a flashlight. I was kind of like moving.
How many feet would you be away from the bear on the other side of the property in England, in American footage?
I've never thought of it in terms of American footage or any footage.
They'd probably still be pretty too goddamn close, is my measurement.
I'm more of an expert in Japanese footage.
Oh, God damn it.
Like
the point is that I agree that you should. I was talking, the whole reason I wanted you to do this was take your little puppy dog out for father-son time and romping in the fields, but now you got bears, but you were still taking a dog out to piss with a bear in your yard.
Plus, I thought maybe there's a chance Swami would scare off the bear. You know, like sometimes little dogs scare off big animals?
The fuck? Swami could kill a bear if it got stuck in his throat. But otherwise, no, you're more dedicated to the satisfaction of your dog's bladder than you are potentially your own life.
To be very honest, no, it has nothing to do with the dog's bladder. It had to do with the fact I don't want to have to be honest, ask Suzanne to clean up dog's shit or piss somewhere else in the house, and I wasn't in the mood to do it. So I took it. I risked my life. So I risked my life.
You throw yourself to the bears.
He was on the other side of the property. He was all the way down the hill.
It's a paper towel to pick up the turd. You can pick the turd up by the clean end. They do that on the wrestling programs all the time.
Nah, he stole some French fries off the table. I thought maybe there'd be like a little bit of a wetter poop, so I wasn't in the mood to deal with it in the house. And what if it's not on? What if it's on the rug? Because then it's not as easy if it's on something else where you just clean it up and then you go get a fucking Lysol wipe and you wipe it a little bit. If it's on the rug, it's an issue, especially if it's wet and like in the rug. And then it's like Suzanne's going to be pissed because she has to get out. She has like a steam thing that she does. And see, you create problems. All I did was walk the dog. It took me 2 minutes. All I had to do was scream, walk the dog, and wave my flashlight around. And then I went back in the house and no one got hurt.
Were your neighbors aware that there was a bear in the yard, or did they just think that you were having a goddamn mental episode at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever out in your backyard?
One of my daughters was watching me from the window. She said it was funny because I thought about that as I was doing this. I was like, someone's going to think I'm a maniac, so I got to indicate what I'm doing. So I just yelled out, I kill bears! Ah! I kill bears! And I turn around and I see my daughter dying in the window.
No! What if the people 2 doors down are named the Bears?
That would be funny.
Well,
that would be funny.
There's old Richard and Linda Bear. They've just moved in, and well, they found them dead in their house.
I kill them!
I kill the Bears. So you could be brought into a goddamn circumcisional evidence.
So this morning when I woke up, I went in the yard. I just, I checked around just to make sure he wasn't in any nook. And then also you have to look up to make sure they haven't climbed the tree. Because that's my other fear. Like one day I won't notice a bear and it'll just like drop out of a tree and jump on me. See, there's a lot of things to worry about. A lot of things to worry about here in rural America.
No, God damn it. Wait a minute. How many occurrences have there been even? We live not far, and I've lived around the area all my life, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, where they're known to have a few bears, and I've visited there, and I've never heard of bears on a widespread basis just dropping out of the fucking trees and tackling people.
I haven't either, but it's going to happen. Why are they climbing the trees? Eventually it's going to be like, I found one. I got him.
They're climbing the trees to get away from you because you're screaming like a fucking idiot. That's why they're climbing the trees. They're up there with your next door neighbors, thinking you're goddamn it having a mental meltdown, and hopefully you're not armed.
I don't go to their den and look in their car windows.
Who? Your next door neighbors? Are they
the Bears? The Bears. That's right.
Oh, the Bears. Well, I mean, if they do it to you, you're allowed to do it back to them. That's the state law. Look in each other's windows. If they do it first, though, they got to do it first.
And then you got to look for the cubs.
It's called reciprocal peeping.
You have to look for the cubs, too, because whenever there's a big bear, you got to figure there's going to be little ones this time of year right behind them. You see them sometimes in the road, but no little cubs. Apparently, this was just a big mama bear hunting for who knows what.
It was a rogue bear that was unmarried and sexually frustrated and ready to fucking bite your ass. Anyway.
Do you have bears in Kentucky, in Louisville?
What? Now that's 2 different questions in the entire state.
In Louisville. Let's focus on Louisville.
Walking down fucking Muhammad Ali Boulevard in broad daylight, no.
Ah, it's a bear! Ah!
These people are screaming for completely different reasons. As they walk down the streets in downtown Louisville, they are just, but there's no bears.
And you can laugh about it all you want. It's either I looked like a maniac or the other side is my method worked. I was out there for 2 minutes, walking the dog. He peed, went back in the house.
Well, can we come back to the bear facts about Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yes, there are bears in the mountainous and wooded areas of eastern Kentucky, but up here, again, we have deer. I've mentioned the wildlife situation, but we have never, to my knowledge, had a bear in our neighborhood.
See, I felt good this morning when I saw the deer on the property because I was like, okay, if the bear was here, they wouldn't be fucking around.
Well, maybe they've declared a truce.
No, they run from everything. They stare, and then they just take off. And then the other one's like, oh, shit, he's running. I'll run, too. And they'll just run.
Well, they don't like your smell. Something
how did this become,
about you that offends them.
How did this become Insult Brian and his love of wildlife?
Well, no, you're not saying that you're loving them, and they certainly don't like you. You're screaming at the bears like a fucking lunatic. They don't want to have anything to do with you, and you're staring at the deer while they're going about their business, and you obviously have something off-putting about your scent.
I'm not screaming.
They run away from you.
I'm not screaming at the bears. I'm screaming to prevent the bears. There's a big difference. Sorry that not everyone has the safety of Castle Cornette. Not everyone's in just safety all day without the fear of bears dropping out of trees and eating them.
I was almost fucking killed by a rogue raccoon here not long ago that invaded the property.
Rogue raccoon. I like that. That's a good name.
Yeah. See, how can you say I'm safe here? It's just that I'm not out there screaming it unless it's people. The only time I'm out in my yard screaming, it's human beings that I'm screaming at. Think about it. Of all the times that I've told you that I screamed at something, was anybody not a human being?
I don't
think about that.
I don't know any tale of you screaming at an animal. No.
Or, well, I guess inanimate objects.
I even remember Harley like pooping in your office next to you, and you'd be like, "Oh, that's okay. That's so cute. What a cute little poop." I'm like, "What the fuck? If that happened here, it would be a nightmare. It would be a catastrophe."
Oh, no. All righty. Anyway, can we do the show now? We barely started.
Barely. This is your show.
Well, and I said I don't know what I'm doing, so I'll keep on doing that. We got some emails from the Cult of Cornette, several people that I want to recognize, acknowledge, or whatever the case may be. And you should have gotten this one also. This went to both of us, but from Rose, who said, "Hello, Jim and Brian. My name is Rose, and I live on the island of Saipan in the West Pacific Ocean." She may be descended from Amelia Earhart. "My mom and brother and I have been listening to your shows for almost 8 years now together, and we've always enjoyed laughing at your shows on long car trips during the pandemic lockdown or cooking meals." We're very appetizing, Brian. But Rose says, "My mom is still in Minneapolis, but I've moved across the world to Saipan. And every time we talk on the phone across our 15-hour time zone difference, we talk about your shows and pro wrestling. But right now, my mother is very sick, and it would mean the world to her if she heard herself get a shout out on one of your shows. Her name is Lynette. Lynette in Minneapolis. We're shouting at you now. You better get better and feel better, because you'll be better off."
That's right.
But she has to answer the question. Lynette has to get better and write in and tell us, why the fuck did Rose go to Saipan? Rose, you have not indicated it's past military service of some description. What would occasion someone to move from Minneapolis to Saipan?
Lynn, Rose is involved with the Saipan porn scene.
Hey, no!
Fucking everybody. And it's on film.
Lynette,
and it's on film.
Hootie hoot. Don't hootie hoot, don't listen. No, come on now. But anyway, Lynette, get better soon, get well soon, get better quickly. Just go over and get Rose is what you need to do, and bring her back from Saipan. What is the, Brian, can you Google Saipan? What's the population of Saipan? Did Rose just go over there because she could take over the place? Any knowledge of, it's in the West Pacific Ocean. And I know that Amelia Earhart either was supposed to end up landing there or did she depart from there or not make it to there?
Oh, no,
I'm trying to remember now.
The last documented words of Amelia Earhart were, "Let's get the fuck out of Saipan." No, it says Saipan is the largest of the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. Commonwealth in the Western Pacific. It's characterized by sandy shores and mountainous landscapes, and has several championship golf courses. Maybe she plays golf, Rose. Its highest point,
so professional golfer or a military person.
Japanese memorials mark Banzai Cliff and Suicide Cliff, sites from the 1944 Battle of Saipan.
How many people that live there? Was my original question.
Was that your question? Was there a question of
that was you answered everything but, and we played golf. I don't know what the fuck.
The population is 43,385, 50.9% Asian, 33.6% Pacific Islander, 2.1% white, and 0.2% others.
and then there's Rose. So she's one of only 43,000 something people living over there. So she can have her way with things, I guess.
But get better, Lynn. That's the point. That's the big point.
That is the point. And we got an email from Clement, who actually has I wanted to mention this because he's marked an achievement, but he said he started listening to the podcast with his mother, who had been a cancer survivor for years, then started to suffer from dementia. And as he was not only taking care of her, but also he's got a wife and 5 kids, he listened to our podcast while he was up late nights and evenings and etc. to enroll in a doctoral program in business, and had our podcast to listen to while he studied to, he said, keep him sane, but I don't really see how that we would help in that regard. Sanity is not one of our strong points over here, but nevertheless, even when his mother unfortunately passed away in 2024, he wasn't sure about continuing school, but he kept with it, and now he will be graduating in June in Knoxville somewhere. He didn't say where, but nevertheless, congratulations to Dr. Clement. He's going to be a doctor now, a doctor of funny business of some description.
Congratulations, doctor.
And also, Chris from Boston, he wrote this, and it's amazing because we've been talking about World Class and the Von Erichs documentary. And I was going to bring this up later, the difference. When they went to Boston, I thought we went to Boston. I was on the card. I thought it was cool, right? Because, wow, I've only been in business 3 years, not even. And we're drawing a house in fucking Boston. Then when they started talking about Israel, I was like, all right, settle down now, cowboy. But Chris and his dad would watch World Class Wrestling. They would record it on Saturday mornings, and then they'd watch it together on Saturday nights. And they liked the Von Erichs and the Fantastics. His dad hated me. But point is, he says that we were a big part of a special time in his life, father-son time in the 80s with his dad. And we wanted to recognize Chris in Boston. His dad passed away on April 27th. And that's why he sent the email in. But again, that's the thing is, there were so many times in that era when different generations, right? We've talked about this. Now, how many kids are there? How many grandmothers are there? Different generations would either watch the shows every week, or if they went to the matches, they'd be going. It was something the families could do. And do you see, I know, families, very well-off families, possibly with endowments from fucking major foundations, go to the WWE shows now. But is indie wrestling or AEW wrestling, or are those 6 one, half dozen the other, is that a family environment anymore?
I think independent wrestling in a lot of cases should be, but regular independent promotions don't seemingly, well, I shouldn't say everyone, there are a few. They don't go after families. They're going after hardcore wrestling fans who will come with themselves or a few friends and react to the crazy matches, not a dad, his wife who doesn't watch wrestling, and a couple of kids going to a show at the local high school gym and seeing matches that are there to get them to pop out of their seats and be entertained, as opposed to, look at the incredible athleticism nonstop all night. No one could pin anyone. This is amazing.
Well, and
let me just also add my sympathies for Chris's loss.
Yes. And you know, all those different father sons going on now, hopefully they can have that on TV, but it's harder to have it now in person because you know, the shows of any major league level are so in what's the word I'm saying, intermittent in, you know, anybody's market. You can't just go to your local wrestling anymore. But there are still some shows down south where they still do old-fashioned wrestling on spot shows because they've never really left. And so people have the guys getting into business there, such as it is these days, still see that, but you never hear about them.
You know,
anyway,
it's funny. We talk so much about, you know, we wish there was another billionaire, someone who could do something in between AEW and WWE and do it right and do it serious and get rid of a lot of the things that both companies are guilty of. Maybe, you know, we always think too big. Maybe there's room, and it's going to be a growing thing for something kind of smaller that just regularly runs shows and does shows like that that people can afford. When you see what's happening with WWE, you have to wonder how much of what's happening to the concert business right now is going to eventually affect them, where fans are rejecting people that we're told are major stars going on major concert tours because the ticket prices are outrageous. And we've heard the complaints from WWE fans. It hasn't had a really big effect yet on ticket sales, but you have to think that there's almost room for, low grade isn't the word, but just a small, well-run wrestling company that could do regular shows that people could afford to go to. You know, entertainment always does good, even in the Great Depression, famously. Entertainment movies did great.
So
but they have to be there. That's the point. I don't know how many options there are right now that aren't options that are well promoted that aren't through the roof in terms of ticket pricing.
Yeah, so you're saying that if somebody was to get together a decent roster of wrestlers and concentrate on a smaller geographic area where they could find or afford television penetration to advertise their product while not having their transportation costs through the roof and people being on the road away from their families, and concentrate on local sponsorships where that they could plumb the wrestling fans in these select markets to go and patronize the companies that were sponsoring them, and that would lead to increased revenue and publicity in that particular area. That sounds like an idea that might work. Have they ever tried that in wrestling?
When was the last time they tried it?
Well, I can tell you, it wasn't long ago.
It's just not happening right now. There's nothing well funded, or at least
that's
funded
that's the problem
out there. You know, if I had Tony Khan's money and I had a wrestling company, I probably would have allocated a whole bunch of it. And I know this sounds crazy, or it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be Tony. I would say, you know, here's 6 towns, and it may not even be the biggest, but I want to run them every month for the next few years. Let's build these towns, and let's have people return back to see things based purely off what they saw last time, not what's on TV or anything.
Ooh.
There's just no working wrestling the way concert promoters work concerts. There's no working local wrestling the way other forms of entertainment, big and small, are worked coming into a town, let alone one that would be regular, which is kind of a very old-fashioned idea. Just no one with money tries it and tries it all in.
There is the problem in that there has been no significant in the middle guy between the pittance that we saw, like that Sinclair Broadcasting was willing to pay and spend on Ring of Honor for so long, or Anthem has TNA, but I mean, there's no millionaires on the roster up there. There's been nothing in the middle of, we're getting by, and Tony spending literally, how many figures is that? 9 figures of, well into the 9 figures of money since he's been in business. There's nothing been in the middle. But Tony would have been smart, to your point, if he had. I know he did Jacksonville because they owned the place, but that wasn't really building a market. I'm not sure were they charging for tickets,
no, especially during. I don't think that counts, and they certainly didn't do it right. But that doesn't count.
But what I'm saying is, whether it was the South and Southeast, which the cities are close together, they have a history of going to live wrestling, or whether it was the Midwest because Chicago is a tremendous wrestling market and you could branch off into Indianapolis and St. Louis and blah, blah, or whatever. Even if he was on national television, if he had picked a part of the country that he could at least establish a really good base where they wanted to see these guys, and they wanted not only TV tapings, but house shows, and then branch out, but the problem becomes, once you've seen one of Tony's shows, it's a law of diminishing returns. His finishes don't build the houses as they go along. They diminish them. They draw fewer people the more often they go back. So there's a problem.
You remember as a fan, and I remember leaving a building buzzing about what's next. Just buzzing about what's coming either to the same building, in my case, the Nassau Coliseum, maybe next month. Just buzzing about what could happen next. I don't know if people leave AEW with that feeling. They may feel fulfilled if they're into that style, but are they buzzing about, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And I think that's one of the things in general missing, and it's affecting WWE too, because all they have now is people getting into the hype, waiting for a moment, and then everything in between a moment just is lacking right now. Real quick, just because I thought about this, what's AEW's annual deal right now? Do you remember? It's like 180 million. What is it?
Sounds close. 170. What's 5 million among friends? A mere hand job.
I thought this was interesting. 2025 pay, which includes 110 million in stock options because of the corporate restructuring. David Zaslav, Warner Brothers Discovery, $165 million.
Pow!
So he's making for 1 year $5 million less than AEW is getting paid for being on TV every week. Think about that. Maybe he wants to start a wrestling company. He's going to have a lot of money and time on his hands.
If these son of a bitches, such as they are, the Nick Khans and the Ari Emanuels and the, what was that fellow's name you just said? Was David Zaslav. Zaslav, or the Saul Zances, or whoever of the world, if they're making 50 million, 75 million, 160, whatever million, what should be the compensation for the motherfucker that finally comes in and cures cancer? Or what should be the compensation for the person who slides in and prevents this childhood fucking disease or handicap from reaching fruition or whatever, when these stupid bastards just wearing suits and ties are going around trying to fuck the other guy wearing a suit and tie and probably don't know shit from apple butter about half the things that they bluff their way through, and they make that much money.
That's why Jonas Salk is such a hero. Right?
Do you ever hear anything about Jonas Salk being a goddamn billionaire?
No, he gave it away. He gave away the vaccine.
Well, then somebody ought to have paid him for it so that you could remember Jonas Salk as being a billionaire instead of this fucking weird-looking goddamn drugged-out Elon Musk or the rest of these other fucking sorry sacks of shit.
Hey, real quick on the topic of Elon Musk, because I thought about this the other day. Serious question. It's going to sound silly, but a serious question. Would people think of him the same way they do? The people who support him, really more than the people who don't, but the people who like Elon Musk. Would they think of him the same way they do if he rocked his natural bald head? Because if you see photos of him when he was, in 2000, let's say, he was going bald. The hair was diving off his head. And now all of a sudden he's got hair. And obviously he really likes it and he tries to look cool with it, but it ain't real. It ain't his hair.
What? I don't know.
If
what
he was a
like
bald man behaving the same way he did right now, would he get the same free pass that he does from a lot of people?
Well, you've got all kinds of creepy bald people in the Republican Party. There's that one guy from Florida that looks like literally like fucking Michael Berryman.
We're talking about people that have young people thinking that they know something and that they're onto something and they behave cool. If he was
There's
bald,
all kinds of people that think that Charles Manson had young people thinking they know.
He wasn't bald. He wasn't bald. If Charles Manson was bald, do you think he would have been able to get all these girls to do everything? Eventually he shaved his head, but that's different.
Steve Austin. He was bald and people did what he wanted. What the fuck? The point is, we're back home. Hold on. Back up a second. What were we talking about before baldness?
Elon Musk. Bald. Jonas Salk.
Elon Musk. I don't know what he fucking looked like in goddamn 2000 because I'd never heard of him until he burst upon the news the last several years being a goddamn creepy Batman villain looking billionaire and then buddied up next to fucking Schittler. And I'm not worried about him being bald. It looks to me like he's got a replacement face on. If anybody has enough money, I think he's had his face replaced. The hair and all. He just had something else spread off on his fucking frame there.
Have you ever seen this guy? He's been in the newspapers for years, and he was just on CNN because there's a show that I had on in the background, Kara Swisher. I think it's Kara Swisher Doesn't Want to Age, or Kara Swisher Wants to Live Forever. And she profiled this guy. He apparently is obsessed with not aging and de-aging. And he has had like his face looks, the skin almost looks unhealthy. But he has like a sleeping pattern and he like keeps his own sperm, like all these weird things. He's like a rich guy obsessed with not aging. I don't know how to describe it better than that, but he's been in the news. Have you seen this guy?
He's a rich guy obsessed with not aging, so he keeps his own sperm.
Hold on, let me see what this guy's name is.
I'm wondering, I'm trying to connect the dots and wondering how that one is going to fulfill the other.
What is this guy's name? Hold on, here's the guy.
Oh,
Brian Johnson. Brian with
from
a Y.
AC/DC?
No, it's Brian Johnson with a Y. If you can Google this guy and see who he is, tell me if you've seen this guy.
I don't have my fucking Google thing in front of me, my keyboard or whatever here. You throw me all off.
I guess this story sucks then. All right, well,
I don't care why. Just tell me why he's keeping his
whole. I don't know exactly why. I named it as one of the many
I'm concerned about this guy's sperm.
Doing.
I need to know what application is being made with this fella's sperm. It's a sperm of the moment decision. Is there any explanation as to how he thinks his own sperm is going to help him live longer? Is he just fucking just recycling it, just in one end and out the other? What is happening?
Because you're obsessed with sperm, my friend. As of May 2026, biohacker Brian Johnson claims to have achieved world-first fertility results at age 48, reporting that his sperm contains 0 microplastics and exhibits quality markers comparable to a healthy 20-year-old. His sperm count 330.
Possibly he's had some contributions from some healthy 20-year-olds.
His sperm count, which is 330 to 380 million, millions on the next line, and concentration 143 million, are reportedly over 4 times the average and exceed WHO thresholds for fertility. In November 2024, Johnson had 165 particles of microplastics per milliliter in his semen. By May of 2026, he reported reducing this to 0, claiming to be the first human to demonstrate this. I really don't want to go too much further into this man's sperm studies, but you get the idea.
Okay. And what has made it that way, or is he just that way naturally? He's just full of spunk.
He attributes this to a strict protocol designed to reduce environmental toxins. Daily dry sauna for 20 minutes at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Testicular cooling, using ice packs on the groin while in the sauna to protect against heat-induced damage.
Jesus.
And plastic avoidance avoiding plastic food containers, bottled water, and using reverse osmosis water. It takes a lot of time to do all this. The other thing, it's like you need time to do any of this shit.
I mean, if you've got a sauna, I guess that would be but 15 or 20 minutes or whatever they said. But also, otherwise, just stay away from plastics, and suddenly your goddamn sperm is as valuable as secretariats, is what he's saying.
He previously improved his sperm quality by discontinuing testosterone replacement therapy.
Well, discontinuing it, and it went up? Jesus Christ. Possibly this guy needs to be a test case. But what is his sperm going for on the open market now?
Well, see, that's the thing. We're talking about all this stupid shit he's doing. I don't know why he's doing it. Like, what the fuck's the point? You can't get her, like, more pregnant. You know, she's
well,
my fertility gets through the roof. You'll get super pregnant. I don't know what the point is.
This is part of the key of living longer, apparently, is that if I guess that's why he's saving it, because then you would re-ingest your own testicular fortitude, and then it would build it up in sort of like cholesterol, right? Only of another kind. But well, he's marketing this. Is there an ounce price, or give me a gallon, I can get a discount?
I don't know if he's marketing it, but he's certainly promoting it, because I Googled Brian Johnson.
So he's just a cum tease. He's just teasing us about shit we can't get.
Here's an article. Biohacker Brian Johnson details his own intimate semen microplastics report with never before seen score. Yeah, there's articles all over the place. So this guy's obviously like doing this. Here's the New York Post. Oh, here's his Twitter. Yeah, and he put up a picture of his sperm so you could see how healthy they are, as if anyone would look at this and know what they're seeing.
Oh, you mean like a microscope, not
yes.
Like just laying on his stomach or something and he took a selfie, but it's like the microscope shit.
That's right. Yeah, I guess the point is, once again, my condolences to Chris, and the show will get better. The show.
Well, it can't go too far in the other direction. What have we done here? Did I plug the WHAS Crusade for Children is coming up, Brian? Before we go too much further, I got to plug that.
No, you have not.
Saturday and Sunday, June 6th and 7th is Crusade weekend this year. Obviously, the first weekend in June. It's a tradition. What is this, number 76? I've lost count, but nevertheless, we'll talk more about it as it comes up. But remember, WHAScrusade.org is where you can go to find out all the things that they do. But over the last 70 whatever years, they've raised, closing in, I believe now, on $200 million for the special needs kids in Kentucky and Southern Indiana, now all over both states, really, at this point now. And we always do something and recognize them every year. So look them up while you're listening to us.
You think Randy Atcher will be on this year?
Oh, God, now quit. Just stop it. We're talking about children. We're talking about charity. This is not the time to point fingers at people for making an innocent mistake. He looked so lifelike because the tape was 15 years old.
It was like a black and white kinescope they put on in the middle of the thing. You thought it was live.
No, I didn't know it didn't. They had color TV in Louisville, Kentucky in the 90s. I'm just telling you. I remember the day that my mom had the first color set. No, it was actually my dad got the first color set. And Randy Atcher was on it the following Saturday night on WHAS. Anyway, speaking of people who have gotten some charity, should we jump into this now? And I'll come back to this other email I wanted to read you, because we got to talk about Roger Jackson, don't we? Now, remember when Roger Jackson was just the darling of all of the news sites and websites, and it spread all over the place for him beating the piss out of this fucking indie guy at the Outlaw show in California, Quentin Rampage Jackson's son. And everybody, he ought to get the electric chair. He ought to be hung and horsewhipped. He ought to be, whatever the case. Apparently, money talks, Brian. Negotiations have apparently been made. And the plea agreement is one felony count of serious bodily injury. He's got to pay $80,000 and change restitution, I assume, to Psycho Stu.
I would think.
And he'll be on probation for 2 years, which this little delinquent won't be able to. That'll be the worst part of this whole thing, is them keeping an eye on him for 2 years, them trying not to be a fuck up. But how much do you think that cost Rampage? Or do you think that the court just said, look at all these stupid, drunken, fat, bald, slovenly fucks and attention-seeking fame whores streaming themselves and taking camera phones of themselves? They should all probably just rot in the 7th level of Dante's Inferno. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing to see that he's basically getting a slap on the wrist for what could have been murder. I think everyone is disappointed by this. He did the smart thing. He shut up and went away for a while. Everyone forgot about this. But, Psycho Stu went through a lot and it was bullshit. And the guy did it and he streamed it live. So I know this is what is happening criminally. I sincerely hope that Psycho Stu sues. I haven't heard that he is, and I haven't heard that he isn't. But you would think with this story coming out, you would hear something. But it just feels like this isn't enough punishment. That's the way it feels to me, but you can tell me what you think.
Well, obviously, but and I'm betting you that boy, I'm going to try to say this. I'm betting you Psycho Stu doesn't sue, because either he's getting this 80 grand to begin with, and to him, that's a lot of money compared to the whatever he could get from the Jackson estate or the family there. But also, I bet you they've gotten to him. Oh, Stu, it's the business or it's wrestling or whatever. He's one of these guys who wants to live and let live. I would live, and then I would see you motherfucker in court after I lived. I'll live to see the day that you'll be hauled into court, you son of a bitch.
And by the way, and it's been a while since we went through everything, but maybe not just Roger Jackson. There was someone filming it. There was the promotion that actually housed and welcomed them into there.
Which
Rikishi just stepped down from, by the way, this past week.
Yeah. I can't believe it took him this long. And it was like, I don't even know if he gave a reason, but it's not like that he was apparently involved on a day-to-day basis to begin with, but I can't believe he didn't back up immediately after this whole thing. But that's, again, there's multiple entities and multiple insured entities that would probably be culpable in a lawsuit if they chose to pursue that, which we'll see if they're smart enough to, or if somebody's got to them and swerved their heads around, and they're not going to do it. Oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah. This motherfucker would be wiping my fucking toilets out when I was a drooling 97-year-old. If I had to put Stephen P. New on him.
Well, obviously, if Psycho Stu needs to sue, you can call Stephen P. New. 877.
Well, and we gave him that advice, and he'd never heard from Stu. That's why I'm thinking that, they've already done some kind of hush-hush deal, but it wasn't nearly as much as Stu could have got if he chose to sue with New. So boo!
Yeah, get it in writing, Stu. A deal without a deal isn't a deal.
And no 3-month out clauses.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But Brian, on a happier note, I see that Vice TV has officially announced the season 7 episodes of Dark Side of the Ring that are coming up. Did you hear a premiere date? I haven't. I'm even on the daggum thing, and I didn't get the email on this.
Give me 1 second. I actually did see that. Let me pull that.
But the season 7 of Dark Side of the Ring is going to be coming up, and
July 7th.
July 7th. There you go. So mark it down on your calendars.
Tuesday, July 7th.
Tuesday night. And see, right at the Louisville Gardens, that's where they ought to hold the premiere. And I'm on a few of these episodes. I don't know how many, and I shall explain. One episode is about the big boss man, obviously Bubba Rogers, Ray Traylor. And I sat down with him for that one. And also they've got cooperation from Ray's wife, kids. And, I think that's going to be a really nice episode. And then the Paul Orndorff episode, which again, I think this, so much tremendous footage that they can bring to that. And they're getting some good interviews. I sat down for that one. I took Paul Orndorff's rookie wrestling pictures, Brian. That's how old I fucking am.
What's the dark side with Paul Orndorff? Is it the arm?
Just his story of, having the great career, but then having the injury and the, early athletic retirement, and then the controversy when he passed away because of his illness and dementia and et cetera. And also it's just a chance to get that's another guy. When does the WWE fucking praise Paul Orndorff?
I'm all for a Paul Orndorff documentary praising him. I was just asking about the dark side. I mean, it's Dark Side of the Ring. It's not wrestling stories. It's what's the dark
we're
side? Branching
out. Since I bought half the company, we're branching out. We're just doing things I like now. But it's going to be a tear-jerking episode, I promise. And the thing that everybody is, there's some other Missy Hyatt. Missy Hyatt gets.
Yeah, I want to see that
episode.
One. That could be a very interesting one. Missy Hyatt was not part of the Eddie Gilbert one. And I thought that was something that was an unfortunate decision that I understand why the filmmakers had to make it for that instance because they wanted someone else's inclusion. But yeah. Missy has an interesting story and has never been shy about talking about it. So I'm actually looking forward to that one. That could be good.
And also, just to show everybody that I really don't pick all these episodes, they're doing one on Zach Gowen, everybody's favorite one-legged wrestler.
Are they going to get Laurinaitis? Seriously, that's one of the stories with Zach Gowen everyone thinks about right away.
I know, but only because it makes Laurinaitis look like the biggest dipshit in the world. I can't believe he'll own up to that on camera. I think not.
Will they get the other one-legged wrestler?
that would be fucking great. That would be fun. Yeah, they gave me $75,000. I got one leg and it helped. I was not consulted on these episodes, obviously, because of lack of expertise on the subject. Also, Renegade, who was that fellow in WCW that was the knockoff Ultimate Warrior.
That's a sad
and
story.
Apparently, and I didn't know that this was a newsworthy thing or the thing that happened or whatever, but you might know better than I do. Samoa Joe and Necro Butcher years ago on the Independence somewhere had a match where Joe just beat the shit out of him. And it was famous on the independent scene of the time and has become the stuff of legend. And I didn't know the fuck that had happened. Do you know anything about what I'm talking about?
Vaguely. I wasn't really following that stuff at that time.
Well, in that case, then that's what some of just to show you, I don't pick them all, folks, but
I was never a Necro Butcher fan. So other than when he was in Ring of Honor, I didn't see too much of him. And obviously him and Joe, you would think it was part of that, but it was never really my thing, so I wasn't really too involved.
Well, he was not. He was a very nice man, but he was not a wrestler that I would have been booking for ever. Anyway, but here's what's created the stir. And again, I don't know what people think they're going to see, but this is going to be one of the more interesting stories they've told because people on so many sides of it just loathe each other. But it's going to be a 3-part episode on Jeff Jarrett, not only centering on TNA, but going back and talking about the Jarrett family. Hopefully they do. We did in great detail to give some context to everybody on what they had already contributed to wrestling. But then he gets into this fucking fiasco, TNA, and all of the interplay for all of those years with the millionaire's daughter and the fucking guy he thought was his best friend that's a lunatic and the whole 9 yards. And then for a while, it ceases being Jeff's particular story as much as the interplay of everybody involved in TNA, but it's the closest look that anybody's taken of the company from that time period. And then, thankfully, Jeff overcoming his issues and having a nice time with his family. So this one doesn't get to be the dark side of the ring, but...
Well, I mean, you're focusing on Jeff Jarrett. I think everyone, the thing that they're focusing on when they saw this was TNA, because no one's taken a shot at it, really. And 3 parts about TNA, it could be the best thing they've ever done if they do it right. I fear that they're going to get a lot of Russo, and whenever they do, they, for whatever reason, go to like a super tight close-up, so it's just all Russo all the time.
Well, but I think that actually helps. The more Russo that they feature, the more that it helps the case of everybody who's anti-Russo, because then they start getting it. Oh, okay.
Did they get everyone who was I mean, they got you, obviously. They got Jeff, obviously. I'm assuming Russo, because he's been a part of previous seasons. Dixie, Dutch. Did they get, obviously Terry Taylor's in WWE, so they didn't get him.
I don't have the entire list of people that contributed, but a lot of the major players and many of the ancillary characters, I understand, have been contacted and or were contacted.
Man. There was ever a time to wish Jerry Jarrett was still alive for him to do something about the history of TNA.
Oh, my God.
The beginning of TNA, because I want to make sure that's presented, just what happened. I'm sure it will be. What happened with him and Jeff, and it was all based around Jeff and Russo. It was all Russo-based. It's crazy.
I could sit and listen to Jerry Jarrett talk about Vince Russo all day long. I mean, in that matter-of-fact, low, slow way he had of just sitting there and say, yep, Vince Russo has to be screwing Dixie. There's no other explanation. He believed it. He said, there's no other way.
That's the Shawn Michaels Vince thing. You try to wrap your head around it. There's no reason anyone should put up with any of this. They must be fucking. There's no other reason. I can't think of anything. It's the same thing.
They must be fucking principle.
That's right. They have to be fucking. You just know they're fucking. I gotta tell you, that is an intriguing thing. A 3-part. They've done 2-part episodes. I don't think they've done a 3-part before.
No.
But 3 parts, again, I'm sure the Jeff stuff will be okay, but it's really about, no one's ever written a book. I mean, Russo apparently wrote a book, but no one's ever really written a book of like...
Russo never read a book. Oh, come on.
But you know what I mean? No one's ever written a book about the downfall and the behind the scenes and just the missed opportunity that was TNA. And, Brian Alvarez wrote Death of WCW years ago, and it was such a funny book to go through and recount exactly what they did and exactly what they said, and that made it funny. WCW didn't last as long as TNA, but there's never been like anyone that really just pointed out just how fucked up that television was and the booking was and the fucking midgets jerking off in the garbage can, just all sorts of shit.
I can't speak for what everybody else said, but there were many occasions I was asked about things such as that, as Aunt Lola used to say. And so if the rest of the people are following my lead, a lot of people are going to be talking about it. here on these programs.
Did they get Scott D'Amore?
I did. Again, I didn't clear their guest list. They were in my home.
Oh,
I wasn't
chatty.
around anyone else.
They're chatty. I thought they would tell you. Thought they would just.
Well, I think everybody wanted to fucking be anonymous on this thing until it comes out. Time to get their affairs in order or whatever.
We named a lot of people there. If I said who would be the best person to get about TNA that wasn't on that list, that would just give you the unvarnished truth, who would you pick?
Who would tell you the truth about TNA? Dutch would, if they talked to Dutch, and of course this was a number of months last year now we shot that, but still Dutch's health has been bad, so I'm not sure whether they did, but Dutch would tell you the truth.
Mike Tenay.
Mike Tenay would tell you the truth, because they have no one to care whether they piss off or impress either way. Who would tell you the truth? Who would tell you, besides me now? We're leaving me out of this, I guess, excluding this is not the royal we.
It really is crazy. If you
Don West is gone.
If you think about trying to do a thing about TNA, it's been around for so long now. They have, to tell a story. I mean, you have to get Bischoff. You have to go to all these different people that were there because it's been such a long period of time and so many ups and downs and crazy turns. I'm looking forward to that. I really want to see how they're going to tackle that.
But I'm just thinking, isn't it just a goddamn shame that I'm thinking of all the people that you could go to that would just tell you the truth about TNA and their experience there in unvarnished fashion. And I got to 4 and one of them's dead.
I'd say Dave Sahadi, but I saw he put out a book and then 2 days later got arrested. So I don't know if he's the best.
No, come on now. What?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
You don't know about this?
No.
Hold
what?
On.
I know he put out a book. Why would he be arrested?
Someone read
Dave
it.
Sahadi wouldn't say boo to a goose.
Hold on. Dave Sahadi. There you go. Comes right up. American multi.
And Keith Mitchell, because I'm thinking of the wider group. Keith Mitchell, the producer of TNA, he'd tell you the truth. They probably talked to him.
I have an article from Post Wrestling, March 26, by Brandon Thurston. Producer David Sahadi charged with stalking, issues statement denying allegations. So he's denying it. He's saying that he did not do it.
I would have to believe Dave Sahadi would try to sneak up on a squirrel at the park. What kind of fucking bullshit must this be?
Who does that? Who sneaks up on a squirrel? Why would you do that? Leave the squirrel alone.
I'm just saying if you said, look at Dave Sahadi, if you said anybody that's ever met Dave Sahadi would stalk someone and be arrested for it. They'd bust out fucking laughing.
A stay-away order was entered on March 16th, directing Sahadi to stay away from the person he is accused of stalking. Post Wrestling is choosing not to identify the person. He was arrested on February 10th.
Or tell us any reason for it whatsoever, apparently.
He was arrested on February 10th and later released on bond. He has denied any wrongdoing in the matter. This was Chattanooga Police Department. Hamilton
yes,
County,
he's
Tennessee.
lived, and again, he fell in love with the Chattanooga area and the mountains down there when he started working for TNA, and their office was in Nashville, and he's lived there for years and years now. And this may be one of those fucking next door neighbor deals where the garbage is going over the fence or something. That's literally the only thing that could be.
Mr. Sahadi, through counsel, is pursuing a civil action in excess of 7 figures for defamation, corporate negligence, and the resulting harm. Corporate negligence.
Do you think it's a company that's dumping their garbage over his fence?
It's Dixie.
It's Panda Energy. Are they still in business?
I don't think they are they?
I don't know. Maybe, they've lost it all in the wrestling game. They were just mere Texas oil millionaires. They couldn't compete in today's high stakes, how much money can you possibly fucking lose on purpose wrestling business.
Oh, yeah, they're not in business any longer.
So So the original subject was Dark Side of the Ring, and suddenly Dave Sahadi is auditioning for the show. But I would again, I would not read too much into Dave Sahadi being arrested, except to say that it's obvious he's filing a defamation suit back.
This is a pretty interesting lineup. Again, I'd like to see the Missy Hyatt show, the TNA ones. Again, missed opportunity. Alberto El Felon should have been one of the people on this season. He is.
Well, I think they just know they'd have to update it next year, and they want to just save it and do the whole.
No, you wouldn't. You would be able to do part 2 next year. That's the difference. It's not updating. It's part 2. Look at everything else he's done in the last year. He's still out. Part 2. He's still out. He's still crazy. Alberto's back. Like every month
is at least out.
Every month there's at least 2 incidents with him in the that we see.
Well, you know what they say, Brian? Do you know what they say? Sometimes they say out of the frying pan and into the fire. That's some of the things that they say. They being them. Have you ever heard them say that?
I've heard them say that, yes.
Would you like to hear me say that now?
Again, yes.
Yes, well, out of the frying pan and into the fire, folks. But if you need to have your ass cooked for some reason, if you need to be fried, dyed, laid to the side, if your feet need to be held to the fire, you know what you want to be in. If the cannibals ever just kidnap you and just put you in a big pot, you know what brand you want it to be? Hexclad. Hexclad, ladies and gentlemen, because if you're going to get fried or boiled or parboiled or poached or sauteed or broiled, might as well be by the finest. What a way to go.
Again,
you'd taste so much better.
This is such an awful example. Let's get away from this because one thing we know for sure about Hexclad, wonderful pans and also a hatred of cannibalism. But we can move on from there, Jim, and talk about all the other fine things you could eat.
There is no reason to upset the cannibal lobby, just to get a point across, ladies and gentlemen. Cannibals have a right to their opinions as well. But folks, Hexclad has changed the game for cooking and cleanup and combined the performance of stainless steel with the convenience of nonstick all in one pan. And we've talked about it before here. How do I know this? Because I'm using it and I've still used it. I've fried more cheeseburgers in the last 2 months since I've had my Hexclad frying pan than I have in the last 2 years because it's amazingly simple. You use the medium heat and the heat distribution is so good because of the hexagonal design that you still get a nice sear like a greasy grill top at a bowling alley like burgers ought to be. And trying to clean these things up, either with the non-stick, you still had to scrape it with soft scraping stuff, or you fucked it up, or the stainless steel, you'd have to get a sandblaster. But Brian, you can testify to this. After you fry a nice greasy half-pound cheeseburger in the pan, you can just turn the pan up and dribble the grease into your recycled pickle jar that you keep in the pantry closet for just such an occasion. And just run the water over this fucking thing and wipe it off with a sponge. It's clean.
Amazing quick cleanup. It's been a wonderful thing. Suzanne loves her Hexclad. She's been kissing me ever since this arrived.
Oh, Stacy has been walking like crazy because the wok, she has been stir frying. Oh, she's walking left and right and she's walking through the night. She's walking left and right with the wok. Because she's stir frying the cabbage and the vegetables and the minerals and the fucking, and then there's meat in there somewhere. I can't find it.
The other night she couldn't sleep. She went walking after midnight.
That's exactly what she did. So, and then I told her, I said, just roll that wok on over here and let me eat out of it. But, or the soup sans, the what is it? The saucepans is what I'm trying to say.
Was that what you were trying to say?
That's what not the soup pans, but the saucepans. You can heat anything up in these. They're oven safe up to 900 degrees.
Hey, you know what? Suzanne's been using the soup pan to make eggs. It fits in there perfectly. She makes the eggs and she just turns it over. It falls right out.
And they fall out.
Yeah, she loves it.
Because it's slicker than cum on a gold tooth. Over 1 million customers, 50,000 5-star reviews. But the best thing is, guys, if you just are the women love it because they love fine cookware and they do fancy things like stir frying and, cooking things all the way through. But guys, if you just want to get it hot enough to eat while you're watching television, this thing, it's putting it on autopilot. And this is the last pan you're ever going to need. As long as you don't hit too many burglars over the head with it, because we mentioned it could be a wonderful self-defense tool because of the weight of the things. They're built to last.
It could be, but it's not, because they're built to cook. They're built to cook wonderful food, not injured,
when the guy's got his head halfway in the window, Brian, you got to, whatever's within reach. But folks, right now, the 12-piece set, Hexclad's 12-piece set, the all-in-one cookware upgrade. Get away from the pans that are all scratched and dinged and dirty and stained, and the handles wiggle. And get these 3 versatile pans, 2 saucepans, and a family-sized stock pot. You can put an entire family in one of these, ladies and gentlemen, and each of them comes with its own lid. So you're going to have every tool that you need to cook for a crowd. Or cook a crowd.
Cook for a crowd. Let's just specify there. You'll be cooking for lots of people if that is what you choose to do.
Well, then you need to get a bigger family if there's going to be a lot of people there. All of these are built with
Yeah.
All of these are built with Hexclad's patented hybrid technology and backed by a lifetime warranty. How long do you plan to live? Hey, you can get a free set if you last long enough. But it's designed to be the last cookware you're ever going to need. It's laser-etched hexagonal steel ridges, Brian. That's what boosts the searing power. They take a laser beam to these, the same thing that Goldfinger was going to cut Sean Connery's dick off with is making your cook pans. So don't go through another spring using the same busted pans you should have thrown out years ago. And if your wife don't like it, well, then throw her out. You should have done that years ago too. And just get the easy pans for a limited time only. Our listeners will get 10% off their order. Just go to Hexclad, HEXCLAD.com/JCE, Hexclad.com/JCE. You're going to get 10% off. Let them know we sent you. And it's amazing what you can cook when these pans actually work.
You will love them just like we have. Make your wife happy. Impress your girlfriend, whatever it is. Hexclad.
Hit a burglar over the head.
One more time, Jim, that promo code.
Hexclad.com/JCE. Well, Brian, before we cook somebody else's goose, I wanted to read another email that I glossed over when we got started talking about bears and sperm. Emerson wrote from the United Kingdom, and I thought you ought to hear about this. He's had a major accomplishment in his life, and I thought you ought to hear about this. You kind of figure into this.
Oh, did he find Lake and Palmer?
No. He's not doing brain salad surgery. He competed and completed a 50-mile ultra marathon. How about them apples?
So he's a lunatic.
He said, this past weekend, I completed a 50-mile ultra marathon. It involved climbing multiple mountains with over 9,000 feet of elevation. I knew this race would take several hours, you think. So I held off from listening to the podcast for a few weeks. That way I had something to listen to whilst I ran and or walked the 50 miles. Everything was going great. Your podcast helped me get through the tough climbs and the long, slow miles I was running. However, after running for 45 miles, I'd been on my feet for 13 hours and a new podcast came up. Unfortunately, it started with Brian's awful piano playing And it was at this point that I thought about throwing myself off the mountain to end the pain that I was enduring.
Sounds like a good thought. Try it. Emerson. You fool.
Yeah, see?
Emerson, who clearly doesn't know music.
He didn't say he was a musician.
No, he said he was a fool.
He completed an ultra marathon.
A fool. A wannabe Darby Allin. Oh, I'm going to climb the mountain, but I'll only go halfway, and then I'll go to the next mountain. Ooh. I don't like his piano. Oh, I'm Emerson.
He's a man who has two ears.
I'm a man. I'm Emerson, and I'm a man.
He was in a stressful situation. He was nearing the breaking point.
Maybe he was delirious.
And you were enough to put him over the edge. Literally.
You know, it's a good time to remind you there are people all over the world who are battling all sorts of issues, and seemingly they find a lot of relief in my tickling of the ivories. Seemingly the music that we create here on the show has done a lot to lift people up and carry people through the day. So I'm not going to let Emerson take away what this music has done for so many people. I own the publishing.
You are to tickling the ivories what they were to captives in World War I when they pulled their fingernails out one at a time to manicure us.
That's not nice.
Is what you are.
That's not nice at all.
Anyway, speaking of shit that just grated on me immediately, Brunt, you had me. We're going to check in with the ancillary wrestling promotions for a moment. You had me watch the new guy in NXT. And his name is Mason Rook. And I don't even know where to start otherwise than to say that it looks like somebody kind of tried to make a wrestling figure out of Play-Doh. And it ended up looking like Mason Rook. But maybe after he made it, he set it on the fucking windowsill in the hot summertime and it got melty a little bit.
Come on now. Is it Rook or Rook?
I don't know. Rook made me want to puke. I don't know what. At first I was like, is it the fucking love child of Dump Matsumoto and Crybaby Cannon? But then apparently what they did was you've just pictured Crybaby Cannon giving it to Dump Matsumoto, right?
And the offspring it would produce, yes.
And the offspring it would produce. Apparently, they had an angle a couple of weeks ago on NXT, and they had laid out one of the guys, and the guy who did it was leaving, and suddenly this fat fucking guy out of the audience that they assumed, or so one of the announcers said, is that a fan, jumped in the ring, and he was wearing like sweatpants and a fucking sweat top. And he did a moonsault on the guy that was down, and he had the biggest plumber's crack. It looked like the plumber's Grand Canyon because his pants almost fell off of him. When his belly flopped out, he had furniture disease where his chest was in his drawers. And it all flopped out over the fucking waistband. And it looked like a fan had just jumped in the ring and done a fucking moonsault. And then he came back again this week, but now he was dressed in what allegedly was supposed to serve as wrestling gear on this, fucking Michelin Man type of. He looked. You remember Man Mountain Link, Rick Link from North Carolina?
Of course.
He was a very nice guy, wonderful person, and he worked very hard. But he had a body where the top of him looked like he should be 275, and below his waist, he looked like he should be 375. But he clocked in the middle because of the two disparities in the. It's like somebody broke two different action figures and stuck them back together wrong. This guy has no, for a big guy, no impressive, imposing body. His arms he's very pale. Again, at one point I thought, is this the new big bruiser in the women's division? But there's no muscle definition to any arms, but they're also not as big as they should be if this guy's fucking 300 whatever pounds. And then it gets bigger as it goes down. And his face, he looks literally like fucking the fat kid in the Little Rascals. Okay. Like that he's just 7 years old. Facially.
Joe Cobb or Chubby?
No, who was it? Was it Spanky?
Oh, Spanky McFarland.
I can't remember. Nevertheless, the point being, what the fuck? This would be like an office rib back in the Vince McMahon days. If you took an 8x10 of this guy and put it in a folder and told some idiot that you wanted to fucking get fired or just get blistered, go take this to Vince, tell him it's the new wrestler you just signed. I mean, what the and he's apparently from across the pond, because when he yelled in the camera that he was Mason Rook and I am here, he's got an accent. Well, I'm sorry, I'm Mason Rook and I am here. He wasn't fat like a Jerry Blackwell or a Bam Bam Bigelow. Holy shit, this giant guy's going to kill me fat. He's just fat like, God, this is a guy that you would see in a physical therapy place. And his voice is not in any way fearsome or intimidating, but the face, you can't get around the face unless they were going to do some kind of gimmick where his mother lived near Chernobyl and he's only 11.
Oh, come on now. What the
No, but there may be something there to that.
What kind of gimmick is that they're going to do?
He's 6 feet tall and he's 300 some pounds and he can do all these goddamn wrestling moves, but he's 11 years old because he's from Chernobyl and his mother is fucking radioactive.
Did you ever wonder what kind of wrestler John Candy would play if it was the early seasons of SCTV and he played a wrestler?
Yes, he looks like a child John Candy.
Again, he's new. Apparently he's worked on the indies and they've signed him and he's now Mason Rook. I'm happy when I see a wrestler who doesn't have what has become the typical wrestler's look.
Well,
I'm happy when there's variety. I'm happy when there's variety and you have different sizes, different sizes. I guess we could just focus on that.
But this is what?
The thing is the youthful look on top of everything else. Because if all this went the way it did and he was wearing a mask, I don't know if it would be the issue it is.
No, if you put him in a top with sleeves and a mask and he can do all that shit, I don't know what the gimmick would be, but that's the only way that it's really visually palatable to. I mean, again, there's a reason why that, not everybody is suited for every occupation. If you're casting a movie about Roman gladiators, would this guy get a job? I don't even, on the indies. Tony Falk looks like Dick the Bruiser next to this guy.
And again, Tony D'Angelo is getting a big push there. I think he's the top babyface now. He's got long hair. It's in a ponytail, but it comes out, it goes wild. He's got a beard and mustache. Looks like a man. When the turnaround and walk to the camera happened, that's the cringiest thing I've seen on wrestling in a long time. That wasn't like just ultra gore. Just as he's slowly walking to the camera, I'm thinking, oh no. What is this? This doesn't seem right. And
he's like prime Rosie O'Donnell with a different haircut.
I Googled him. The first image that came up, someone Someone wrote, "What do you think of Mason Rook?" And it's a picture of Chaz Bono. Oh
my God! Oh, Big well, that won the internet. There's no way to get around that one.
I'm just, again, they're doing it. They're putting him in the main event scene, attacking the top guy in NXT, and 2 big moments on their show. They see something in him. It's just, like you said, it's the least imposing look on someone who should be someone who's dominating the other wrestlers right now that he's going in there with and attacking them. But there's no intimidation there. It just, there's something, a mask or glue a wig to his face. I don't know.
Well, but glue a wig to his face.
Make him a Wookiee.
If you covered the face up, you'd still have the body, and even with a full body suit, you'd still have the body. A full body suit, he'd look like the Hindenburg.
He's built like the zombie sailor King Kong Bundy figure. It's really
and okay, and somebody's going to point to Bundy. Well, what about Bundy? But I invite everybody that is just scoffing at what we're saying to just look at what this fellow looks like. Is all I can say. It's
how old
very
is he?
odd.
I'm dying to know how old he is.
I think he's 11.
You think he's the Chernobyl cherub? That's right.
We're already selling this guy.
No, we're not.
The Chernobyl cherub, Mason Rook. The little 11-year-old boy, he's wrestling to win money to get back to Russia to reunite with his mother and his family. He's only 11, so the heels take advantage of him, and then he busts out a moonsault with his big bad belly. And then also later on, he could have radioactive powers too. He could make his breasts grow unnaturally large, and it just by thought.
It'll be interesting to see what happens now. And obviously, this is a sign of some of the new people they're introducing to the top of NXT, as a lot of the people who have been at the top are getting called up to the main roster because they're releasing wrestlers who won't take pay cuts. I didn't realize the New Day signed a 5-year deal. I just read that before. They had a 5-year deal. They were in year 1 of the 5-year deal.
Oh, jeez.
And that's when they came to him and said, we'll either cut you or you have to take half your salary. That's insane.
I'm telling Gallows and Anderson, when they did that to them years ago for much less money, we aren't even talking $1 million a year or whatever. It was like $750. And as soon as, remember AEW debuted, they had signed them to keep them away. But then when they saw AEW 6 months later, they fucking cut them. And if I would have been them, I would have been familiar with the street address of Titan Tower and the price of a baseball bat at the Dick's Sporting Goods in Stamford. But you're signing a 3-month contract now to be a professional wrestler with the WWE because Brian, they have to feed the Khan family and the Emanuel family and the Levesque family and all the other, and the Shapiro family.
So they can all hire their family to come work there. How many of those people you just named have family members that work in WWE? Right? Ari Emanuel's daughter, I heard, was working there.
Yeah.
How long before Paul Levesque's daughters are all working there? Shawn Michaels' kids are working there. There's a lot of people who get their family jobs with WWE once they're in, and they seem more than ever to want just people and their families that work there. So,
well, there you've got it. Who's Mason Rook related to? Bastion. He's the son of Bastion Booger.
Oh, come on now. You've gone too far. I put Bastion Booger in your head the other day. Now you got to do this?
Well, I'm trying to think of
Bastion Booger. Get out of here.
Giant blobs of jelly of the past. But good luck to Mason.
We'll stay on top. Now I'm intrigued to see him work.
No, you stay on top of Mason. I'll maintain a respectful distance.
They see something in this guy, so I want to see him work a match. I want to see what they see that would cause them to do what they just did. So we will stay on top of the scene, is what I meant to say.
I don't know if I could see something in this guy if they stood him behind an X-ray machine, but we'll find out. Speaking of not seeing anything in something, we must, we promised that we would do this, even though I'm, again, clean and sober now for several weeks from AEW programming. I said I would keep track if they do anything really stupid or accidentally really great, and stupid has happened a time or two. But this week, they did two things. One was they tried hard to do something good and almost succeeded. And then on the other one, it was as nuts as usual. But Ted Turner passed away this past week. We talked about it. You and I did on the drive-through a couple days ago. But on the Dynamite program on Wednesday night, obviously they wanted to do some kind of tribute, and that's where they started the program. And Tony Schiavone was in the ring, and you got to give it to Tony. He did probably the best speech presentation, in what he said at the top of the program, and the honors that he gave to Ted Turner there, and when he started in TBS and blah, blah, blah. He did a wonderful job there at the top, didn't he? Right until he got to the introduction of his next guest. But before we get there, that was very good by Tony. I had to applaud him for that. Off the top of his head in the middle of the ring.
Well, that's what it is, the off the top of his head part. That was one of the best things Schiavone ever did, because he didn't come across like a guy playing the role of wrestling announcer who's over the top. He added something, and he spoke from the heart, and it seemed genuine. There was no teleprompter. He didn't have a script. That he did all that off the top of his head as smoothly as he did it is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen him do. And I thought it was a nice and a fitting tribute, a fitting way to start the show at that point. I knew they were going to do something. You can say what you want about Tony Khan, and a lot of people pointed out that old tweet where he said he knows more. What was it? Ted Turner doesn't know 1% of what I know about wrestling, but, that aside, that was just him being flippant. Tony respects, I think Tony more than maybe anyone is in love with the idea that his show is on Turner Network, TBS and TNT.
Yes.
So it was a fitting tribute, and then it got for me, it got a little weird.
Well, that's the problem, because then Tony introduced, and here's another man who, his career was intertwined with TBS and blah, 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 Sting. And Sting came out. He had the face paint, but no makeup, or face paint, but no makeup, face paint, but no music. But to tell the God's honest truth, if there was a time that he should have come out with no makeup and the sunglasses on, at least, wouldn't that be it? But he comes out.
I would have preferred he came out and actually thought about what he was going to say.
Well, that's the next part I was going to. Well, unfortunately, he had. Brian, Sting is a wonderful person. That is an iconic wrestler. But as someone who has tried to produce him on numerous live interviews on television programs in the past, I'm sure he gave it a lot of thought. And it went out there and fucking lost the plot. Because a few fans also hit. So anyway, here comes Sting, no music because of the somber occasion, but he's painted like a panda bear. But a few of the fans are like, holy shit. They forgot already they're in a tribute. The fans did. But then when Sting got in the ring and Tony, said something to him, he takes the microphone and he's wandering around the ring and he's cutting a wrestling promo about Big Ted. That's what Big Ted. And he told the story about, I swear, if you just give 1 second of thought to what anybody's fucking saying. He told a story about when all the executives, some of them in TBS, they didn't want wrestling. And he's trying to make Ted a babyface. I understand that. He could have said some of the executives were against the wrestling company, no matter how successful we were. But Ted Turner always had our backs. But instead he said, the executives in WCW or TBS were always against the wrestling company because they'd say, Ted, It's always in the red. It's a fuck. It's even. And then Ted said, "Don't worry about it, boys. I got deep pockets." What the fuck? Ted Turner never said just lose as much fucking money as you want to lose. He made flippant.
No, he didn't. But Big Ted did.
Big Ted. And Ted Turner would make flippant remarks every once in a while when faced with someone said, well, so-and-so is going to cost, well, I got deep pockets, that type. But no, but he's doing a wrestling promo. He's rambling around the ring. He's thanking Big Ted like 3 or 4 times. He told everybody that the WCW that they remembered so fondly, apparently even during the Attitude Era, was just losing money like a goddamn sieve.
He called him Billionaire Ted. He called him Billionaire Ted.
He called him Billionaire Ted. And then when Tony tried to get somewhere, he tried to reel him in, but they've only got one microphone. So Tony gets the microphone and asks Sting about the main event, saying, well, it must be great for you to be here to see Darby Allin to whatever the fuck. And Sting snatched the microphone away from Tony again and fired him up about Darby. And thank God. Now, remember, the Ted Turner fucking tribute is not concluded yet. He's fired him up. And now we've got a second all-in billionaire, Tony Khan. I felt like said, who's going to go to him and say, Tony, they're always in the red. But now Sting has lost the tribute plot completely. And Tony comes back to Ted Turner and then tells the story that fans, I know this will be incredible and hard for you to believe, but if you look at the plates on the side of our TNT and TBS belts, there's actually one of the plates has an outline drawing of the old TBS studio on Techwood Drive. That's true. And Tony pointed that out, and it was like he was pointing out to a doctor where he was having the kidney pain. But so he talked to, and Tony Khan designed these belts himself as a tribute to Ted Turner and TBS. And then they did a 10-bell salute after Sting has been out there whooping like a maniac. They've got the people to stand up and remain silent for this somber 10-bell salute. Is like a goddamn funeral service right after the Indian attack on the fort. And then Sting and Tony hugged, and they did a Ted graphic and a fade to black, and then came up with the show open. Oh, and to be honest, we talked about Ted Turner's influence, and he did have a great one on the wrestling business, but there were plenty of dry eyes in the house, Brian. Nobody, whenever they would say, well, Ted Turner's passed away, people are like, really? They didn't particularly, should that have been better done maybe as a pre-tape to air before the live program began for the television audience and play it on the screen for the folks, and then get into some programming, or what? But then you'd blow the pop was the Sting entrance because he was unadvertised, but they seemed unmoved by the reason for him being there, Ted Turner's unfortunate demise.
Well, who knows why that is? And a lot of it could be because Ted Turner has not been a player on the national stage in a long time. So if you're a fan who's not my age, if you're a little bit younger than me, you may not know who he is.
Yeah, this crowd did not seem like they came from Ted Turner's heyday.
And I think this has become really apparent, as if it wasn't already, but especially the last few days, the years and years of propaganda against Ted Turner that Vince McMahon was obsessed with, for a lot of people it worked. They really believed he was this mean billionaire out to crush the people's WWE, which of course is nonsense. I was just seeing something the other day that one time Dave Meltzer was talking to Vince McMahon about the I think it was the 92 scandal with the Ring Boys. And Vince was telling Dave Meltzer then Ted Turner was behind it. And, he's had a weird obsession with Ted Turner for a long time, but it played out in public. Ted Turner has not been around in a very long time. WCW went out of business in 2001, or was sold in 2001. That may be it. I think a video would have been nice. I don't know what they would have used, but they would have. It's Turner Networks. You got to think they would have something there.
I would think some of his home movies were laying around.
I thought it started really well. This was the best of Tony Schiavone. I thought it ended okay. Giving him the 10 bells was the right thing to do. Sting needed to read the room, or just, don't invite him to speak at your funeral, I guess is the point. Jeez, I don't know what he's going to say.
And then Big Brian, he said, I got balls of steel, baby.
I never heard him called Big Ted before. I heard him called Big Ted like 5 times in this fucking thing. I think Sting Big forgot what his name was. Big Ted.
But nevertheless, that happened on the program. And again, they were also, it was not a demonstrative crowd because it was not a large crowd. They were 2,300 people, apparently. They were in North Charleston, South Carolina. And I know some people are going to say, why the fuck is the North? Isn't it Charleston, South Carolina? In whatever fashion it has happened over the years, the city of Charleston, which is right on the ocean down there on the very bottom of South Carolina, now the big arena that is there, and they've spread out, and the city of North Charleston is like, whereas the old city of Charleston still retains some of its antebellum charm and, fucking old fashioned architecture and etc. North Charleston is the big deal hopping area of town apparently now. And it's right north of downtown. You would have never guessed that, would you, Brian?
I feel like I'm there listening to you describe this.
You feel like you're literally on the streets of. But here's the thing. I know people might think, well, that's the old Carolina territory. Do you know the one town of all others in the actual core North Carolina Jim Crockett Promotions territory that I hated to be booked in above all others?
Was it North Charleston?
Charleston, South Carolina. Because it was not a big money town, even in the boom period of Crockett Promotions in the 80s. Now, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, you've seen the stories, and Mike Mooneyham has put out a lot of the articles when he did the Post-Courier column, and histories of the Carolinas have talked about Charleston promoter Henry Marcus, the county hall, and the way that they used to pack the building out. The county hall was a smaller building, but I can see where if you could use the balcony, by the time that we started working there in the mid 80s, that had been condemned. They were afraid if you let people up there, it would fall off the wall. But it was one of those old buildings where back in the day, you could have jammed 2,500 people in that fucking thing, and they ran it every week, and it was a hot building with crowd heat and temperature heat. It would have been a fantastic atmosphere, right? But by the 80s, for whatever reason, first, they never stopped until the mid 80s going to County Hall, and they renovated it. And over the years, they made it a King Street Palace. I think it was a theater. And then they renovated it again and made it a part of a like condominium fucking complex or whatever. But it was a historic building, but by then it was a piece of shit. It was built in at least the 20s. And the curtain that was hanging on the stage, because it was kind of like an auditorium type of thing, where you had a big stage with those big 40-foot high velvet curtains, and then a big arena floor where you could play basketballs, like a basketball floor, and then a upper balcony. So you could get a lot of people in there. And they did political conventions and everything in that building since like I said, the roaring 20s. But the curtain smelled so much like mildew. If you walked too close to it, it would knock you down and make your eyes water. And the goddamn balcony had been, as I said, condemned where you couldn't let people in it because it was dangerous. And there were those 2 and 3 inch long coastal roaches running around in the corners of the locker rooms that were still heated with fucking radiators. And nobody was coming. And then they went to another building, and I can't even remember because by then it was not a regular town for Crockett. He only ran it every so often. Columbia was every 2 weeks. Greenville was every Monday night. Other places at Spartanburg, South, but not Charleston. And then, even then, when WCW took over and was running the newer building in North Charleston, or the WWF in their head, it wasn't a big money town. And of all the places in South Carolina that you could run, I'd stay away from fucking Charleston. I don't know. It don't work. MLW moved there. Did you hear that? Was that because they thought they could draw a crowd down there, or just because Court moved there to be on the beach after he got the $20 million?
Where could I go that MSL won't find me? I know, Charleston.
But I mean, there's great restaurants, and there's wonderful, like I said, the old 1800s Southern architecture. And it's a very artsy community, but it hasn't been a big money wrestling market since the 70s. And then it wasn't big money. It was just consistent. It was a couple thousand people, every week packing the little building.
Well, that's what they're looking for. From everything I've seen from the upcoming Dynamites that WrestleTix has been tracking the ticket sales for, seems like everything's kind of in that range, 2,000, maybe at most 3,000. The average Dynamite, that's the crowd they're looking for, and those are the buildings they're trying to book.
Well, maybe they could have the next show they do down there. Tony Khan could talk to the condominium people and see if they can just rent several of the condos. Just open up everybody's doors, and it'll still work like the old county hall. Henry Marcus. Yeah, the condos. But yeah, Henry Marcus, the promoter, who I think he had to be 95 when he passed away a while back or whatever. But he was the last link when we were there to the old Jim Crockett Senior days, and all the local promoters of each town. He was a real pip. He was a real piece of work, old Henry Marcus. He was about 5'3" and probably weighed 16 pounds because he was mostly made of dust by that point. Alrighty, speaking of people that weigh 16 pounds and look like they're made out of dust, what were you going to say?
Real quick, I have an update. One of my neighbors has posted on Facebook. They had 2 bears at their property last night, so there's another one on the loose.
Oh, now is this one of these fucking neighborhood bear measuring contests?
No one's measuring them.
Oh, well, you had 2 bears. Well, I had 3 bears over at my place.
There's so many fucking cameras in this neighborhood. Everyone's like bragging, like, look at the shots I got. Look, this other person got shots too.
Well, you ought to write this guy back as, hey, look, the bear ate my dog and one of my children. How about that?
Why would I do that?
Just see if he can top it.
It's a she.
Well, then she's going to have to work harder, isn't she?
The bear just came right into the camera. Oh, man, it's right up his nose. Oh, my God. Oh, that's so amazing.
Is this live?
No, this is, I don't know how I can share this.
Then why are you screaming?
I was doing live commentary.
I thought the bear had attacked the woman with the camera.
No, it would have been going, I kill bears!
God damn it. So this is a stationary camera. This is not a camera that the woman was holding when the bear attacked the woman.
No.
With the camera.
No, it's just a camera-friendly bear. Just a typical, it's a Yogi. It's looking for a picnic basket.
Well, boo-boo, speaking of boo-boos, what about, we're going to keep everybody up on, they had a main event in AEW that could tell a story. We've talked about this. Will Ospreay, MJF, The one thing that I've been keeping up on that they've been doing is with each of those guys in AEW, because I wanted to see how badly they could botch this whole thing. And we've said, if you want to look back on the YouTube channel for the previous clips, we've told the story of what they could have done with Ospreay and MJF going to Wembley Stadium. But instead, MJF loses the title to Darby. Then MJF gets beat by Kevin Knight. Meanwhile, fucking Ospreay was beaten by everybody, including the front desk clerk at the hotel, and has resorted to training with the top heel group because they've told him that he's basically an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing, and he's a loser because he got beat so bad by the mid-card babyface that the doctor had to stop it. I could go on. So this week, not only is Ospreay still training with the heels, Brian, but MJF is trying to get his world title back from Darby Allin, who beat him in 2 minutes a few weeks ago. But this week, Darby Allin beat Kevin Knight, 2 baby faces, had a match, took him everything he could do to beat Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight's the guy that beat MJF last week. So both these guys have beaten MJF. So MJF comes out as the third horse in a 3-horse race and challenges Darby to get his title shot back so he can win his belt, blah, blah, blah. Brian, if you were Darby Allin, wouldn't you, if somebody offered you a hot meal and a warm pair of socks at this point, would you, they expected people to believe this is when you have MJF, who got over and was first notable for seeming real and working and telling the truth in this spin where you couldn't tell one from another. He has to come out there and he has to say to Darby fucking Allin, okay, what about if I put up my scarf? What about if I put up my diamond ring? Well, that actually could be a wrestling stipulation. Darby don't want that. All right, what about if I put up $1 million? And the people just sat there. Because what the... It's just ridiculous. Not only the offer, but the response. When Darby Allin said, no, I used to sleep in my car and be homeless, man. Your money means nothing to me. It seems like if you had been lowered to having to sleep in your car and be homeless like the irresponsible post-adolescent loser that you were, that you'd want that $1 million so you never had to resort to that level of subhuman existence again.
Well, there's a difference between people who live in their car because they have to and they don't have options, and people who live in their car because they choose to because they want that experience.
I think he was wanting the experience because he had no choice but to have the experience.
I don't know.
Considering that this guy's been a fuck up in every other aspect of his life, one would imagine, but nevertheless. But the point is, $1 million, Brian, I know everybody's smart and it's all show business, but would it be maybe just a tad bit more ridiculous if he said, how about my spaceship? I'll put my spaceship up.
I will give you all of my sperm.
Well, now that might be realistic.
The $1 million thing did seem a bit comical just because it was... No one believed it. I mean, no one believes it. If you're saying things that no one believes by the time you say it, then you should probably have something else to say. The diamond ring thing seemed realistic.
Yeah, and it's a wrestling stipulation, right? The scarf is the thing that the heel offers that's meaningless and trivial to belittle the baby face. And then the Dynamite ring would be a wrestling stipulation. And then MJF could have said, look, Darby, I'm obviously more successful than you are, and I have a much better contract, and I've been rich from the start. So here's a blank check. And just take the blank, make it a blank check instead of saying an amount. And if you're going to have him turn it down, because then he can say, I don't care how much money you offer me, but he hasn't just turned down a ridiculous fucking offer. Like Danhausen's out here. It was a spaceship and a blimp and a goddamn billboard. And then Darby cuts a promo. He said, this is great too. I want something dear to you and near to you. I want to take something away from you. That's wonderful babyface motivation. But then he says, I want what you flew 15 hours to Turkey for. I want your hair. Here's the thing. Besides the fact that they're using it at an angle, how did anybody find out that MJF flew to Turkey 15 hours each way to get a hair transplant? I can understand if a guy shows up and he's got hair. Believe me, I questioned Stan Lane. But Stan said, well, yeah, I got this thing in Jersey. But fucking Turkey? And besides, Stan said that to me. He didn't broadcast it around the entire goddamn wrestling world. Would MJF have admitted that he went all the way to Turkey for a hair transplant? And now they're just using it in promos? Wouldn't that be something that you would, like the old days when the Hollywood actress went off in seclusion to have a fucking abortion or whatever the case?
You would think it's something that would be kept quiet. I first saw it online with one of the AEW wrestlers kind of having like a worked back and forth with MJF on Twitter, and they said it, and my first thought was, oh, he must have given him permission to say this. Did he get a hair transplant? Because I'm not saying he had a big, thick head of hair, but it wasn't all gone or anything. So the idea that he came back, if he did have a hair transplant, if he didn't say anything, I don't know if too many people would have noticed. So
well, if that they've called attention to it, you can look at it and say, yeah, it does look different. But before, the worst thing that you might have thought was he's using a can of that Wahoo McDaniel fucking spray black or whatever. But now they're talking about him going to, number one, if he told him, why would you tell somebody you fucking so vain that you went to fucking Turkey to get hair transplants? That's stupid. But if he didn't tell him, somebody else told him, if he's not telling them it's okay to talk about, and I believe I'd had some words with people. But again, this whole goddamn thing, even in a standard wrestling angle, okay, hair versus title, they find some way to devalue a member of the goddamn match at the same time. So MJF's got fake hair he went to Turkey for. But nevertheless, so now MJF is going to win the belt back. So apparently Darby got to win it in his hometown, despite the fact that it made no sense to this story whatsoever and just derailed MJF's momentum unnecessarily. But then MJF gets to win it back in New York. So hopefully he can still defend against the fucking loser, a babyface that has been beaten like a drum and is being smartened up and trained by the top heel group to come back and win in his hometown. It's everybody's hometown. If they come to Louisville, should I just go down to win the belt real quick?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Make a few bucks. Next week is Darby versus Okada for the title. So we have a little bit of a ways to get to MJF and Darby. You know, hair versus title, kind of, you would think secure. It's either Darby's losing the belt or MJF has a movie role as one of the Baldies. I mean, those are the two options here. I don't know how that works. If you get a hair transplant, can you just shave your head and it looks normal?
Can you shave it? Yeah.
I don't know how that works. I don't know anything about it.
I wouldn't be goddamn testing the parameters of it if it was me.
And he's not the only guy in the business who's gone to Turkey. He's just the only one who seems to have talked about it enough so that they made it into something. I don't get it. But that's their big match. And they've got almost a sellout, I think, at Satchmo Stadium, Louis Armstrong Stadium.
Satchmo Stadium. And also, that's the first time that anybody's ever said that. A lot of the guys in the business have gone to Turkey.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. Since
a lot of the turkeys in this business have gone to pot. Well, we'll keep track on everybody's what appendages they're losing: hair, belts, various types of things such as that.
You know what they're not losing?
What's that?
Their boots.
You know what? They're not. They should burn them in the middle of the ring, quite a few of them, but they're wrestling boots, not their work boots. Because even the guys in the business have come to realize that you may want to wrestle in wrestling boots, but when it comes to getting out in the mud and the muck and the blood and the beer and the bullshit on the farm and actually the bullshit anywhere that you may live, the Brunt workwear boots are the ones you need to wear. And that's why I've talked about these. Brian, I was out just a couple of days ago. The Monroe brothers, spring has come early in the Ohio Valley because of the warmer temperatures. The leaves are all out now, so I'd walk the property. There's the sassafras tree in the back. We soil drenched it, but it ain't doing very good. The maple tree is just overtaking it. They're coming right out of the ground together, and that new maple is, god damn, it's just spreading out everywhere, but the sassafras tree may have to go. But that's the kind of things that I determine when I'm wearing my Marin Brunt work boots, which are high quality without the heavy, uncomfortable feel of traditional work boots, make you feel like you're wearing a boot with a loaded sole in it. And they're waterproof. They're safety toe or soft toe. They got both heavy duty, lace up or pull on. And these things, whether you're the sole alone, Brian, as I mentioned, you can walk up the side of a nice giant white oak tree with the grippage and just throw a fishing line up over a branch and just wheedle your way up. But you can walk up the sides of walls with these things. You're not going to slip. As a matter of fact, you can do walking on a ceiling with these things because you're not going to slip with these grippy soles on the Marin work boots. Have you walked on the ceiling with your boots, Brian?
I have not. I have walked outside in the perimeter where there's bears. Of course, Lionel Richie had a great song, Dancing on the Ceiling.
We're coming back to if you want to kick a bear in the ass, there's another thing. Thank you for getting me started again. The Brunt work boots are the bear kickingest boots you've ever had. They're the boots you want to wear to go out and kick bear. And that bear will go, and he'll run off. And again, if you'd like to carry your valuables or anything like that, just stick them underneath in the nice, soft sole and stick your foot in there because these things lace up nice and tight. Nobody's going to be able to pull you. You're going to have to be dead. You're going to have to be tagged on your toe in the mausoleum there in a crypt somewhere or in the coroner's office, but where they're going to take your boots off forcefully for anybody to be able to pull these things off of you. So you're not going to be falling victim to these random bands of boot thieves that are taking out of the streets over in the major American cities. They're stealing people's boots. Brian, you've seen all the news reports. You're not going to have to worry about that with the Brunt work boots.
Haven't seen anything.
They stay on your feet.
They do indeed. Haven't seen anything about these problems, but your problems will be reduced if you have the right pair of boots on your feet. And I love my Brunt work boots, and I know you do too. And the listeners will as well.
I was out there in the mulch and in the creek and in the mud because it did rain last week, even though we're in drought. But I can be out there in the drought too because these are waterproof. I can do anything I want with my boots, and you can too. Folks, and they make pants also. So if you're tired of going out in public in just your boots, or potentially someone has warned you against doing it again, then now they've got pants. So you can wear the pants and the boots. And the pants are just as durable for work as the boots are. So if you have jobs that are hard on your feet or your ass, get their pants and boots. Stop overpaying for workwear that doesn't last. And right now, Brunt is offering our listeners a huge way to save with their starter kit. You can bundle their top boots. Now, these are not boots that go on your head. They're just top-rated boots. But the boots still go on your feet. Bundle their top boots and work pants for 10% off. So you're saving dollars and dollars of money by going to bruntworkwear.com/JCE. That's bruntworkwear.com/JCE, and you're going to save 10% off the combination of the pants and the boots. And again, you might be able to get away with it going out with the pants on and the boots off. But I don't recommend going out anymore with just the boots on and the pants off, because there's too many things left to chance.
All right, I'm glad you don't recommend that anymore, as you just said. But
well, in the past, it seemed like it was harmless, but some people have had trouble.
There are bears in the vicinity, but James,
and they like nuts.
I can't even speak. Jim, let's let the listeners know here. Let's not go too nuts. Let's let them know how they can get a great deal and what that promo code is for the boots we love so much, those boots from Brunt.
And the pants that go along with the boots that keep you from going to the cell. bruntworkwear.com/JCE, 10% off the pants boots bundle. Put your bundle undercover with their pants and then stick your appendages in their boots. Or, well, can you get all of your appendages? Stick your 2 feet in their boots. Put the other appendage in the pants and just cover everything up. And it's a risk-free trial, because if your dilly-dally's the wrong way in the pants, then you can send them back.
One more time, that promo code.
bruntworkwear.com/JCE.
That's right. Brunt.
Well, now I guess, Brian, we've got to talk about one of the documentary programs, the many documentaries we've been flooded with here recently and are going to continue to be. I guess they got the 4 Horsemen coming up on A&E and the Road Warriors they've announced, blah, blah, blah. But what was this on? One of the many plethora of the streaming services. This was Netflix.
Peacock,
that's it. And Peacock is the lame duck, right? They gave him this, and like, here, take our table scraps. The only explanation I have for this documentary, and I have seen more exciting educational films they used to show in grade school about the horrors of VD than this program, but is Shawn Michaels running for office somewhere?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Did they just say, okay, we're going to make an 1.5-hour documentary. The sole purpose of it is to make people like Shawn Michaels. And we're going to make it as boring as possible. And when his wrestling career is over, we're going to go another 40 or 45 minutes. And we're going to let everybody talk about how wonderful he is to tell them a fucking finish. Did you?
So you liked it?
Oh God! It was as exciting and interesting and captivating and or whatever at various points that the Von Erich documentary was. Whether it was the highs when they were the king rock stars of DFW, or whether it was the lows, or whether just whatever. This was just a redemption piece to get people, and the people that hate Shawn Michaels then had to come out and say, but now he's a great guy. But also I thought it was slow and it was repetitive. And for a guy that had more exciting matches than almost anybody else in the business, you didn't see that much of him. Did they just catch me on an off day, or were you captivated by this?
I can't say I was captivated. You know, when I watched this, the thought that popped into my head, funny enough, was, to the victor go the spoils. him and Triple H played the long game, and now it's their narrative and it's their history. They still can't tell the truth about Montreal. They leave out all sorts of shit and change history. They pretend like Shawn was a bigger deal than he was when he was the worst drawing WWE champion other than Diesel in history, which was right around the same time people started going to WCW Nitro and watching that. So, I mean, there's a lot of revisionist history I always feel around how big Shawn Michaels was. Not to say he wasn't great in the ring. He's one of the all-time best in the ring, but as I always said it, Shawn Michaels had the best performances. Bret Hart had the best matches. And those are what matter more than single performances, which are just you doing everything you can to get yourself over.
Well, the bigger thing was consistency and reliability, and that's what you had with Bret instead of Shawn. But nevertheless, they tell the story at the start. They even have Bret say, well, he was a first-rate asshole. And Undertaker said, I wouldn't have pissed on Shawn Michaels if he was on fire. And these were true statements. But then they had to come back later. Oh, now he's great. But we'll get there. He was a kid in San Antonio, Texas, watching Southwest Wrestling. We heard that. And then he went to wrestling school. And then he started in Mid-South Wrestling. And that was pretty much the coverage of his rookie time. But they said he was a natural, like that he was just that good instantly. And that's not necessarily the way to phrase it. You could tell he was a good kid with a lot of potential. Like a few times on TV and at a couple of house shows, we worked with him at that point. When Watts had ran those towns every 2 weeks, and if you didn't have a particular main event program match, sometimes he would just put the top guys in with 2 guys on the card to get them over, right? So we wrestled Shawn Michaels and whoever, Brian Adias, I can't remember. But Bobby would do spots with Shawn Michaels because he was good, and he did, if you called something, he was there for it. And he had some oomph to him, and he didn't hurt anybody. But he was a green kid with excellent prospects. But then suddenly, they had him joining Marty Jannetty and forming the Midnight Rockers, and then they debuted in the WWF. And 2 years later, it just completely glossed over the Midnight Rockers. He and Marty, were they put together, and did Vern do it, or did they do it in the Central States first?
The Gardeners just showed up. That's another story. They did it, I believe, for Vern. In the Central States, it was Marty and Tommy Rogers, not the real Tommy Rogers, the other Tommy Lane, I believe.
Tommy Lane.
And then they put the Midnight Rockers together. Of course, they left the AWA to go to the.
Can you talk a little louder over the tractors back there?
They were supposed to come yesterday, but obviously when it rains, they have to come the next day. So yesterday, it didn't rain. So I don't know why they're here right now. I'll have to talk to someone. But what I was going to say, will you stop laughing? You are just having all sorts of fun on my property that I'm not having today. What I was trying to say is they got fired from the WWF. Remember, they brought them in the summer of '87. They worked a set of tapings and made fools of themselves, and Vince fired them. Then they went to work for Memphis again and Continental, and came back in '88, a year later.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. They just said, well, and I got together with Marty Jannetty, and they showed a couple clips of the Midnight Rockers, and then went right to the '88 WWF debut. So 2 years of their career, boom. And but again, the Midnight Rockers were a great in-ring babyface tag team. They were Vern's answer to the Midnight Express to Rock and Roll Express, because in 1986, when anybody thought about a tag team feud in wrestling, it was a Midnight and Rock and Roll. So there was a little consternation from both of our parts when all of a sudden they got the Midnight Rockers. What the fuck is that? But the problem was Vern's business was going, down fast at that point in time. The Rockers had a good program with who? Buddy Rose and Doug Summers. And they also worked with Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose with Paulie, the original Midnights. And it was just, Vern wasn't going to do any business regardless of who was on the roster. But yeah, they just skipped over that, as well as the drama, which kind of even would further their point of Michaels being such a pill, no pun intended, back in those days, that they came in their first night and got fired and exiled for a year. But nevertheless, and then they glossed over their run again in the WWF fairly quickly. And with all of the footage of him just hugging these fucking kids in a wrestling school, for an 1.5-hour documentary, they could have spent 1.5 minutes on some of this shit. But then he split up with Marty pretty instantly. And Shawn said, I don't know anybody that gets into this to be a tag team. I'd actually probably 50 brother tag teams over the last 100 years would want a word with you as well. But nevertheless, you could tell that he had no loyalty whatsoever to Marty Jannetty, his partner, and he wanted to be the guy. But yeah, that's why 3 minutes was spent on the Rockers with a 3-year career. No stories of the stuff, etc. Bruce Pritchard is wearing makeup just to sit down and be a talking head for a documentary.
It's so weird looking. It's like a future Mason Rook.
What if Mason Rook was put in a time machine? But nevertheless, by the way, when you see me on Dark Side of the Ring, folks, I'm here in my own home, just all natural. Just the way God intended me to be.
Let me ask you something, because some people think I'm too hard on Bruce Pritchard whenever we review these things. How do you think he comes across?
Well, I mean, partially because I know the situation, maybe, but I think even the candid viewer would say, okay, this is the guy that's with The Office and is telling The Office point of view, because he's the one that either has to kind of make some type of explanation for why that they did something like that stupid, whatever that is, or to take up for the company line when the talent's getting out of control or whatever the fuck. It's the party line. It's the Office propaganda. Everybody kind of figures that, don't they? He never says anything inflammatory about anybody.
He also at times doesn't say that. I mean, the version of Montreal that he was spitting out there, at least how it was edited in this thing, was, left out a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of Vince McMahon induced things. But he's the voice of Vince.
It's the party line.
It's the voice of Vince because, instead of like, I did this, if you notice, Bruce is always like, we decided to do this. We did this. As if he was the one making the decision.
Well, no.
He comes across bad, though. I don't think they in the company understand, to the average person, I don't think Bruce Pritchard comes across as an honest guy or
how smuggish he may be.
Sleazy, just kind of a sleazy, smuggish guy, yeah.
But here's the thing, if he says we, then there's more than one person. If he says I, then he's accepting blame from somebody for something. If he says we, it's like, well, we were in a group, and the group just thought, just slide the heat to the side. They had an NXT writers meeting, which consists of a room full of pasty-faced white guys and one 20-something-year-old girl that's learning from Shawn Michaels how to teach the next generation. My God. That's the thing, is everybody universally agrees that Shawn Michaels in the 1990s was a goddamn dick. Just a fucking flaming dumpster fire of a nightmare to know, to be around, to have to deal with, to have to fucking, if you were on the booking team, he made your job that was already challenging enough, even harder, trying to work for Vince McMahon and deal with a goddamn drug addicts' sways of fancy from one direction to the other. If you were one of the boys in the locker room, unless you were in his little boys' treehouse club, you were subject to ridicule and fucking burial. If anybody that he came in contact with, it was more difficult, whatever you were doing, if he was around. But now everybody says he's lovely. But I ain't met him since he's been lovely. And I don't believe that our goddamn paths are ever going to cross, because I can't believe he'd come to Louisville and knock on the door. Am I going to spot him at fucking Kroger? So I'm sorry, I never got the good Shawn Michaels. All I ever saw was the motherfucker who was making my life harder, pissing me off personally, and pissing me off indirectly because of the manner in which he talked to and treated other friends of mine and everybody in his goddamn environment, and the way that they treated the wrestling business and wiped their feet on the guy that was paying them, while, as you mentioned earlier, not setting the goddamn box office on fire. And I'll say one more thing while I'm on the subject. All this goddamn shit in here about, the pressures of being the champion and the guy and the heaviness and the self-doubt. God, buck up. Buck up, kiddo. You fucking little twat. You were one of the highest paid people in your chosen profession in the entire industry. You were the champion of the goddamn company. If you didn't think you could handle the job, don't goddamn ask for, don't politic for it. Don't cut people's balls off to get it. Because I know a lot of other people that had that position that didn't have to take 18,000 different kind of pills, and because they were miserable and filled with self-doubt and fucking, oh my God, fuck you. If you're a Chris Candido and you're a wonderful kid who's helpful to everybody and works hard and never says anything sideways about anybody, and then you undergo your drug problems, then you're entitled to get some sympathy. But if you're a goddamn irresponsible adolescent dick from the start of the time that you get any recognition in the wrestling business, up until the time that you have to retire allegedly because of a back injury, and are still paid by the guy that you fucked around on numerous occasions to not wrestle for the next 4 years, and your contract coincidentally expires right about the time you discover the career-ending injury wasn't career-ending, and you can do this shit like you always did for another 6 or 7 years. Fuck you. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad we're getting your honest assessment here, because not everyone would say that. What are your thoughts on this narrative that the whole thing about the Clique, it wasn't guys just protecting their spot and fucking over everyone else. It was about guys who loved the business so much that they got into the car and talked about it?
Yes, they did. They loved the business so much that they got in the car and they talked about it. What can we do with each other in this group and keep everybody out? How can we get paid the most money? How can we work with each other and get Vince McMahon to bend to our will, when they weren't everybody really, except for Nash? So goddamn, and Triple H, bombed out of their fucking heads that they could barely think at all. That's what they were doing. And it's only the people who still have to deal with them that are, but now everything's, and him, everything's great. No, everything wasn't great then. Y'all were a bunch of adolescent, self-serving imbeciles. You made everybody's job harder. And I didn't like my job to begin with at the time, so fuck you double. I wrote at one point, uncooperative, self-absorbed assholes except for Waltman. And they're living the rock and roll life. Well, don't live the rock and roll life. Save your fucking money. Be a goddamn grown adult. Take care of yourself. Vince wanted to live vicariously through Shawn Michaels, as we mentioned, although it was not said here, but that's why he switched him babyface so he could achieve Vince's boyhood dream. And he won the title, and then Shawn says, I was a gloomy Gus. Oh, the pressure, the responsibilities. I didn't handle it well. I didn't have the maturity. You think?
Did they mention Jose Lothario at all in this? I don't remember if they said
he was seen on camera and never referred to once. And that's another guy that, he buried that whole thing because he didn't want, I guess he thought Jose would block him from getting pussy or something if he was in the corner. I don't fucking know. But anyway, and then he got pissed off at Hall and Nash when they went to WCW because the plan all along was he would work with them. They would all work with each other. But then he said, I lost my support system. It was a scary time. Again, if you're a 30-year-old man and you have to have your friends around when you're being paid a goddamn fortune and you are the best performer in ring in the business at that time, fuck, grow up or don't do this. Don't be a high maintenance problem child. Bruce Pritchard said he collapsed under pressure and lashed out. The drugs were slightly mentioned, downplayed till finally then they had to admit, Shawn said, I was a functioning drug addict. And then he lost his smile. I'm just telling you, I was there the morning that Vince was on the phone with fucking Shawn in the other room and then would come back. Well, Shawn's going to have to take time off. What? Shawn says he's gone to the doctor. This could be a career-ending knee injury. But I never heard the diagnosis of an ACL tear. I was thinking, or under the impression, that we were talking cartilage, but nevertheless, Vince was both resigned to it that he's going to come, he's going to give the belt back. But at the same time, as we all were, skeptical about it because suddenly he's been working like he's been working, and suddenly he's gone to the doctor and they say you can never wrestle again.
They left out the Marine who beat him up.
Oh, well, that was a different time, but that completely was not talked about.
That was before this, though, yeah.
Yeah, that was not talked about. But the point being, he was fucked up on drugs and he was a mental fucking wreck because he's goddamn was a fucking mental wreck. But instead of admitting to that, even to Vince at that point, he does this bullshit where he's lost his smile and he gave the belt back and told everybody his career was over with his knee injury. And he's back in 2 months. And he said, well, Dr. Andrews said you could rehab it and put a brace on it. Oh, fuck. That would have been in the initial consultation.
And that ain't a full ACL tear if the doctor's telling you that.
Well, and as a matter of fact, if anybody's going to go out, Cornette's talking out of his ass again. Hello, McFly. I've had one of each, left and right ACL, and I had the diagnoses. And you could tear your ACL fully, and you can do rehab, and you can put a brace on it, and you can work. People have done it. Fucking Terry Gordy did it for quite some time. But that option would have been presented, especially by Dr. James Andrews of Birmingham, Alabama. If he said your ACL is torn, he would have said, here's the things we can do. The surgery for full reattachment, that'll be X amount of time out and this and that. And fucking we can scope it and clean it out and it'll be less time out, but you'll still have the ACL torn and so you're going to have to brace it, or you could do that, whatever. It wouldn't be like you can never wrestle again. Oh, but wait, maybe just put a brace on. And he's back in 2 months. And it just, again, this was endless with this fucking guy. They told the truth that Bret and Shawn hated each other. I've mentioned before that DX to me was the worst part of Attitude Era TV, and I'm talking about the Michaels and Helmsley. Not with Road Dogg and Billy and later on, but Michaels and Helmsley brought out the worst of each other. It was juvenile and bad taste. It made wrestling look like fucking jackass, which is why Russo loved it. But while there were Austin and Bret and Undertaker and those guys, Foley, are going out there and they're digging into it and they're getting over and they're working hard, these two are jacking off telling dick jokes. Sorry. Montreal was ridiculous again. They couldn't even if they did an hour and a half documentary, they couldn't have told the real story. Because it's been done and it still hasn't been, but they don't try here. Same old bullshit. Triple H, he couldn't be allowed to go to WCW with the belt. But nevertheless.
They don't talk about the fact that Bret Hart had creative control in his contract when he leaves.
They don't talk about the fact that Vince didn't think he was going with the belt, just he was going without losing the fucking belt.
They say Bruce Pritchard's like, Bret opened up negotiations with WCW. No, Vince told him to. Vince told him, I'm not going to want to pay you anymore. Open up negotiations with them. The whole way Triple H, it's really Triple H and Bruce Pritchard present Montreal is dishonest and disingenuous. Shawn Michaels lies less than they do about what happened there. He has the greatest excuse of all. I was stoned and I was an asshole. It's the greatest excuse.
I don't know what fucking happened. So you can go back, folks, and on our YouTube channel, and we do the deep dive. The Montreal Omnibus is up there. Some of it's with previous microphones, so please excuse us. He took the bump, Michaels did, on the casket and ruptured the discs in his back. I have replayed that goddamn bump. I wanted to catch him at the time. Like, I'll find it. He didn't hit that fucking thing. But again,
you don't believe the back injury story, right?
Here's the thing. Maybe maybe his back was injured. Maybe it was injured by that. Maybe it was injured some other way. I have a hard time believing it was a career-ending injury that ended his career up until the time that his contract ended, at which point he came back and was as good as ever for the next 7 fucking years. That's so convenient. And Bruce said, well, it was a career-ending injury, but he desperately wanted to be in shape for WrestleMania. Bullshit. We didn't know up until the time he walked to the ring whether he was going to show up and actually go out there and do that thing. And I remember the days leading up to it was in Boston. I was at that miserable hotel. They put me in the first night with no air conditioning. He wanted bodyguards. He wanted a separate place to fucking dress. He didn't want to show up to do something or another. Then he was sending Triple H out with messages across the pond or whatever. It was.
Yeah, they also don't say in there that as soon as he left, the morale in the locker room got better.
Instantly. But he did say he went off the rails from taking too many prescription pills. But he did the job for Austin. He sold his back all through that match for the gorilla position. I still maintain. Because here's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. All through that match, he was illustrating how much pain his back was in, right?
Right.
When a guy is working and he's really hurt, but the fans aren't supposed to know, or the boys know, whatever the fuck, but the fans aren't, you will do everything that you can not to sell something you're not supposed to be fucking selling. Unless it's part of the story. If it's a real injury, you try like hell. When I went in the ring with Paul E with the bad knee that time, I was trying like hell not to fucking limp. He's the best in-ring seller of the era. the Ricky Morton of the 90s. You would have thought that back, my God, was going to fall in half. That's what I'm saying.
You're convincing me. You're convincing me more and more the more you talk about this.
I'm just telling you, his career was over. He had the back surgery by their dates, like 9 months after fucking WrestleMania. He had back surgery. By the way, has anybody ever seen the scar? I talked to somebody who said, yeah, he saw a scar on his back. It was about 1.5 inches long. I'm not saying he didn't have something done, but he didn't have a goddamn broomstick put up his spine. They had footage of him trying to be a local sportscaster and opening up the wrestling school. And he's telling a story. Hey, my career is over. I'm looking for another career. You know, the local sportscasters, they make 75, 100 grand in the 90s in San Antonio. But nevertheless, Vince was still paying him. He had a contract. Vince paid his contract after he retired to the end of it, which the end of it was not too far in front of when he came back and called Triple H, say, listen, could I do this one more time?
And by the way, I don't think he could have done local sportscaster. I don't think he's made for that. Even his promos before he got really, really stoned and they just became, him saying wacky shit, they were never really that great. I think the best talking I've ever seen was him talking about himself in this. Was the most comfortable and natural I've ever seen him. He didn't seem natural as a sportscaster in the clips they showed, which are the ones they picked.
But anyway, and then he saw one of the Nitro girls on TV, so he got her number and called her up, and they met and they got married 2 weeks later or whatever. But then they had a kid. And then she realized he was on 1 million drugs. And so that's why, with the kid and the wife, he got religion and started wearing a cross and got off one crutch and onto another, but apparently became a nicer person.
Did you see Terry Taylor?
Yes. And that's, again, it's a pattern in the wrestling business. When you have managed to piss off almost everybody that you've ever known and nobody will speak to you anymore, then you find religion. And then everybody feels like they have to, be nice to you now. Because, well, he was saved and he's born again. Shawn Michaels, I heard the news he was born again. I wasn't moved because I wasn't really in favor of the first one. So when his contract had expired with the WWF and he was no longer being paid by 2002, he wanted to see if he could have one more match with Triple H. And suddenly he was as good as he ever was, and he came back full time and had his redemption run where, for the umpteenth time that he had claimed in his life a career-ending injury, this time he came back and had the greatest wrestling matches that anybody ever had of all time. And now everything is love and peace and joy with the family, and he loves his job, and the kids love him, and his daughter does hair and makeup, and his son works in the art department, and his son is a fucking giant. It's apparently like 6'8" and 400 pounds. I don't know. And we were only an hour into this thing. And I'm like, what the fuck else is left? And the Flair retirement match and the 2 Undertaker matches. Undertaker was sitting there in Boston ready to fucking beat the shit out of him at Gorilla if he didn't drop the belt to Austin the right way. And 10 years later, they're having the greatest matches of all time, and they're all friends. And then Michaels retires again, but Triple H takes over NXT. But then Shawn comes to Orlando on a family vacation. And while he's in Orlando for 2 weeks with his wife and 2 children, he decides to leave Texas, move there, and take a job working there. Do you think that was an oversimplification, possibly, Brian, of a story that because his best friend is running the thing?
Well, maybe. I mean, this is all, again, a few minutes earlier, it was, I saw the Nitro girl on TV and I ordered her and then we got married. Like, it just, there's a lot of weird, what the fuck?
And a ton more compliments about his work at NXT. And I wrote, this is some boring love festing. And then Triple H has the heart issue. And Shawn steps in to take over NXT. But then NXT 2.0 comes about. The upheaval, I wrote in quotes. They never mentioned that it was Vince that hijacked the thing and sent it all to hell and made it a goddamn Nickelodeon show. They just said, what was it, like management or some upper force? And they all rolled with that.
There was one part earlier, too, where Triple H was talking about how he first got Shawn into NXT. And it was just about like, I wanted someone here in case... He said, I wanted someone here to be me in case I got called up. And he like stopped himself to do Raw or SmackDown. To do Raw or SmackDown? What? So, yeah, they didn't
basically,
the only person that said Vince's name in this may have been Brett.
They were trying, Triple H and Shawn were trying. Triple H is thinking, the old man's got to go sooner or later, and I'll get this thing, and then Shawn, I'll have you running the school. But then Vince jumped in for throwing things into chaos over the last few years. And they had more footage of Shawn coaching talent. And then I looked and they were starting to have people like say a pithy comment about him, like, oh, he's done this for me or he's done that for me, or I could always count on whatever. And it's like the rap, right? Where you said they're building for the finish. But it seemed like they've been building for the finish for like 10 minutes. And I looked at the fucking thing when they went to a commercial break, which, by the way, you get in on the Peacock. And they had like 10 or 15 minutes left at the end to come back on. And I said, I can't. My mind is numb. We're already up to 2020 fucking 3. What has he done in the last 2 years that are worth 15 minutes? And it just, he's got a story they could tell if they wanted to tell it. There wasn't that great an amount of exciting footage. It was a redemption story for him. It was his best friend, probably told production, hey, make people not like hate Shawn anymore, please, because he's nice now or something. And that's the only reason for this television program.
Please pretend like Shawn drew money and didn't drive away viewers to WCW Nitro, which is exactly what happened and exactly what I saw happening in real time, and they never addressed that.
You saw it happening in real time. Jesus Christ. Imagine when you'd go in the mornings and people had to put the fucking numbers in front of you. You're like, what the fuck? And then you try to do something that might draw, and halfway through it, he loses his smile, or he changes his mind, or he don't want to work with that guy. He wants to work with the guy that's lighter on him.
That's why I brought up the Marine.
Or he started a riot because he got pilled up and the fans didn't like him and he wouldn't work.
I forgot about that. They didn't even bring that up. What was that, Little Rock?
Little Rock. Danny Hodge was in the ring and they were rioting and setting shit on fire.
Well, there it is, the Axl Rose.
He got pissed. Well, we got the call the next day, but he got pissed in Little Rock because it was, again, the Attitude Era, the early days of that, 97, where they're acted off and the fans are throwing shit because that's cool on NWO television too. And my God, I've been in Little Rock where if they weren't hand grenades, you didn't give a fuck as long as they weren't throwing those. He wouldn't go out. He fucking walked out on the thing, didn't have the match, stood to pit. Danny Hodge was a special referee, goddamn all-time icon. Wouldn't fucking work, and the goddamn people set shit on fire. But anyway.
It's just so interesting with Triple H and Shawn Michaels being in charge, because how would they deal with two guys who behave the way they did?
Oh, you know what that would be? Well, you can't have that anymore because nobody acts like that anymore, and all the contracts and various business deals would prevent it. But if those two had to deal with those two, Triple H better double up on his heart medicine. Anyway,
that was the Peacock.
I've had the same opinion, all based on every interaction I've had with Shawn Michaels. One of the most tremendous in-ring performers of all time, and an irresponsible, adolescent, pill-addled fucking jerk.
I guess that's one of the things people wait to hear. If anything that we see with him will change your mind, but you being someone who lived through it.
Apparently he's not anymore, but well, he you know what? He should have goddamn met the Nitro girl and had a kid and fucking changed himself around before I met him. And then I'd just love him and I'd squeeze him and hug him and call him George.
You know what the funny part too is about him seeing his wife on TV and being like, I want that? That means he wasn't watching Raw.
Yeah, but and also, again, for either one of them, one would think, just call somebody up, have a date, okay, then let's start a relationship or whatever. But what short period was it? They met, they were married in literally like a month or whatever. And I've said, Jesus Christ, that was certainly wonderful reconnaissance y'all did on everybody. Maybe she'd have figured out that he was on the medications. Anyhow. So that's on Peacock.
And they do show how one of the ways he did Bret dirty when he did that promo and said, you're not a very moral person on the road, or whatever he said.
Oh, yeah. He said, I've seen you don't hold yourself up as an icon of morality. I've seen you on the road and everything. And what was Bret's wife's name at the time? Julie,
yeah.
It caused heat. And
then Sunny
right
Days.
There. And a Sunny Day right there, Bret was want to just jump him and beat the fuck out of him. And so that's the thing. Is Bret, I think, showed tremendous restraint because there wasn't any doubt in anybody's mind what would happen if he actually did have a fight with Shawn. And the brief skirmishes they did have, bore that out. But there was no doubt in anybody's mind. But Bret restrained himself from just beating the fuck out of him because it was wrestling, and you're not supposed to do that to guys in the locker room. But you also weren't supposed to try to get heat on guys with their wife on national television either.
I still expect one day you're going to call me up, McBride. You're never going to guess what I found. I found a clump of hair.
No, I know where it is. I don't have it, but I know where it is. My ex possesses that.
Oh, I thought it was lost. I didn't realize she had it. Oh, okay.
Oh, well, it's somewhere. It might not be easily accessible, but it's somewhere within her possessions.
Well, there it is, the documentary on the cross-eyed kid, Shawn Michaels, on Peacock. And of course, Jim, Shawn Michaels, when he went home after the Marine beat him up, and when he went home after he lost his smile, and when he went home after he lost his back, maybe he just needed to recharge his batteries. Maybe in the 90s, they didn't have the type of battery power you needed on the go. And fortunately, we do today. Maybe that's why he's a different person. And maybe all the listeners can become different people, powered up and charged people, thanks to our good friends at Ridge.
So you're saying that right now, Shawn Michaels has a cord directly from his sphincter to a Ridge power bank.
That wasn't exactly.
That's what's keeping him charged up with the positive force. I can see that. And I can see where his super energy battery pack was winding down back in the old days. And, back then, the only thing that you could do when you laid down in the hotel room was put a quarter in the vibrating bed machine. And you just turn that thing and brrr, oh boy, that felt good. But otherwise, you were pretty much back like they were back in the pioneer days, with just rubbing two sticks together, and that's how you generated your power. But now in the space age modern times, folks, Ridge, the same folks that make those wonderful wallets that you can't lose, you can't destroy, and they make wonderful Oriental fighting stars. Now Ridge makes a 5-in-1 travel power bank. If you're going to be on the go, you can keep going with this power bank because it's going to charge your phone. It's going to charge your headphones. It's going to charge your watch. It's going to charge your Kindle. What is a Kindle? Anyway, what is that thing? I've heard of it.
It's a tablet to read books.
Well, plug your paperback books that you buy in the gift shop at the airport into this thing too, and I guess they'll just burst into flame because they don't need electricity.
Well, no, that's not how that works at all. No.
But you can instead of having to travel with a half a dozen cords tangled up in your bag to plug all your shit in, and I haven't even talked about the busy businesswoman who's on the go, traveling, jet setting from New York to San Francisco. If you've got to find a place you can plug the Diddlator Mach 3 in on the sperm of the moment, you're sometimes out of luck in some of the modern hotels, although some of the hotels with hourly rates and XXX movies in-house do have that special Diddlator plug. But just to make sure, take that Ridge power bank everywhere you go, because you're going to charge your Apple Watch, you're going to charge your Lightning, you're going to charge your USB-C. You're going to charge everything you need to charge, possibly, I don't know, a milkshake mixer if you're in the room and you're thirsty, possibly even bring a small portable camp stove if you're on a long trip, because this way you'll save money on eating out at restaurants. Plug that camp stove right into this son of a bitch, too. It's got 20 watts of power.
Yes.
And that's 3 times as much as the Easy Bake Oven. It charges your phone with 10,000 milliamp hours capacity. So that's 3 full phone charges that you've got in your pocket. And of course, this power bank, it's very small. Now, if you put it in your front pocket, people might think that you have kind of a moderate-sized reducible inguinable hernia. But if you put it in your back pocket, they'll just think you got a fat ass. And like everything Ridge makes, it is built to last with free shipping, a 99-day risk-free trial, and a lifetime warranty. This is the last power bank you're ever going to need. As a matter of fact, for those of you with pacemakers, if you use the pacemaker adapter, then it's literally going to count you down as to how long you've got to live, because they synchronize these things.
It literally doesn't do that.
It'll say 7 days, 4 hours, and 13 minutes. It's so you can plan.
It will not say that. You cannot plan that sort of thing. Again, this is not one of the features. Let's not create features that will not be available. Let's talk about the fine ways that this can be used right now.
Okay, and again, just also a public service note for you folks with pacemakers. Don't get too close to the new model garage doors, because if somebody tries to open one, you're going to fucking take a goddamn flying mare right in the street. I saw that happen the other day.
What?
Yeah, they hit the... I told Bobby Eaton that when they put the thing in his heart several years ago. I said, now, Bobby, stay away from garage door openers, because if they press the opener, if it's on the same frequency and you get caught up in it, you'll take a big backdrop.
That is ridiculous. Oh my God.
Anyway, so folks, it's plain facts that you need power in today's environment. And also, let's say your family is on the run and up in the mountains and the coyotes are howling, you're going to need to be able to plug your family in to stay warm. So for all these reasons, go right now to ridge.com, RIDGE, ridge.com, and use the promo code JCE. And what you're going to get is 10% off of this incredible power bank that is going to power up your phones and your pods and your pads and your knees and your ankles and your liver and your spleen and anything that you normally plug in. And also, if any of the children are in an iron lung, this will run the average iron lung for about 7 to 9 minutes. So again,
there's no
10%.
one currently alive in an iron lung, so that's not an example that can be used.
Oh,
here.
did he pass away? We did. But it wasn't the power bank's fault. It was just his time to go.
You can go through the YouTube channel, folks. We did something about the last living person in an iron lung. But Jim, why don't we wrap things up by letting people know what a great deal we have for them and how they can access it?
Yes, you can get your very own iron lung. Your Ridge power bank to plug in all of the things that you need to charge and power at ridge.com/JCE, 10% off with that code at checkout, ridge.com/JCE. Code JCE, 10% off, and tell them we sent you, and then they'll send you back.
Once again, we love their products here, and you will too. Ridge.com/JCE.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a modification you can make on this thing, and then you can take jumper cables and hook them up to your nipples.
Why now? No. Once again, ridge.com/JCE. Comedy aside, that is the promo code in the link.
Zap! Oh, Brian, before we go any further, I was going to bring this up earlier in the program, and I got distracted. But I have here, it's not a brochure. It was an email. It was sent out, I guess, to every goddamn body in the world from the WWE, announcing this new thing they've got for SummerSlam, this new attraction. And basically, they're going to have a tryout, like a wrestling school tryout for NXT or a tryout for their training developmental program. But the fans can buy tickets. VIP packages are going fast. Watch the next generation of WWE superstars compete for their shot. With VIP access, you will join Shawn Michaels, WWE coaches, and superstars for an inside look at what it takes to make it in the WWE. Your thoughts so far before I tell you what you get in this package. When you grab a hold of their package, this is what you get.
Evil, greedy, and also brilliant. Who ever thought about having a wrestling school and selling tickets to watch the training or the tryouts? You're not just going there. This is VIP, a VIP experience.
Oh, yeah. Well, they might let you get in and take a fucking backdrop. It's not listed here, but you're VIP, and there's a big picture of Shawn Michaels with his cowboy hat on, and he's smiling, just smiling. Your VIP experience can include access to live WWE tryouts. New. Vote for your favorite participant. Now you can get to pick who they pick to pick over. Q&A with Shawn Michaels, WWE coaches and superstars. WWE superstar meet and greets. Exclusive cooler. Cooler. What an exclusive cooler.
Well, now I gotta go.
A tryout t-shirt and lunch is included. Maybe they give you the lunch in the cooler. It's like frozen bologna and a fucking loaf of bread.
I like that you get the tryout shirt so you can go home and pretend that you actually tried out.
Yeah. If somebody had tried to pry one of the fans or just any civilian member of the public not involved in the wrestling business had tried to pry their way into the Davis Arena with a crowbar to see the tryouts, Danny Davis would have fucking plucked their eyeballs out and thrown their limp carcass in the fucking parking lot to rot and fester where the vultures would come in the summer sun.
But you see, if you guys had really been visionaries and had a bunch of extra coolers lying around, maybe you could have done something like this. A Q&A with Shawn Michaels. You know what the first question is going to be? Shawn, hey, Shawn, no, I'm over here.
Oh, hey. Is there a magician's school?
I don't know. I actually just got my daughter the National Geographic Magic Kit, so she could play around with some of the basics.
The National Geographic Magic Kit, what is it? It's like voodoo spells from Zimbabwe, or what how does National Geographic figure into magic?
I think it's National Geographic. It's just branding. It's just some kind of branding.
See, you got your small child.
You're making me doubt myself.
Voodoo kit. You don't even know what the brand of it is.
Why would you say these things?
She's going to be casting spells. She's going to be sticking a pin in a doll of you here later on tonight. What the fuck are you doing?
It is National Geographic. I just went to Amazon to see what I bought. It's National Geographic.
What do they have to do with magic?
Now that you bring this up, nothing at all, but it's a trusted brand. So when I saw that it was them bringing me the magic expose, I thought I could trust them.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Here's the commercial. A trusted brand in magic. National Geographic will take your kids to places they've never been before around the world and strand them there.
I trust them on natives. I trust them on tortoises.
Trust them on natives. When you're in the market for natives, you only supply...
I trust them enough that when looking here, they have a whole bunch of magic kits. Science magic kit, amazing reactions kit. It's a chemistry kit. Oh, National Geographic Chemistry.
Oh.
National Geographic Mega Science Lab.
Make your own LSD, apparently.
I like this one. National Geographic Gross Science Kit. Make slime. Creepy STEM project for boys and girls. Dissect a brain. I have to get this one. All right.
Well, nevertheless, if what the question I was originally asking, is there a magician school, was meant to say, by the way, where do these motherfuckers that are magicians learn how to magicify, how to do the magic? Because there's no school. But the point is, they're not just taking anybody in off the street and smartening them up to the way they do things. Or elsewise, then nobody would go to see them do the things because they already know how they do it. And then they'd be down to the people who just loved it for the art's sake, which is exactly where the fuck we are today with wrestling. But it's like letting, here, come on to the University of Magic and let David Copperfield show you how to make a woman's uterus disappear.
In front of a crowd.
Yes.
People are going to be trying out in front of a bunch of free-spending WWE fans, hooting and hollering and voting for their favorite. This isn't going to be a good idea. This is not a good idea.
And the thing
they have to make money from everything like this. I mean, come on.
If it would even... Again, I'm against the principle of letting people inside the wrestling school to begin with, and we all know that. But even... if you were going to do this, it ought to be a gimmick tryout where you're trying the same people out in a legitimate private tryout where they're not goddamn distracted. And then, hey, let's go do the same thing for the marks over here. We'll give you a payoff or whatever. But to give these people allegedly a legitimate tryout and then have it done under these conditions and they're being hooted at by fucking fans. All right.
How much do you think it would, I'm not even joking, how much do you think it would cost? Would it be like $100,000 or less? If you wanted to be in the Royal Rumble?
Oh, no, they could get more than $100,000 for that from some Saudi person. They could probably get $1 million.
Well, no, they'll buy the event. I'm talking about actually participating in the match.
No, that's what I'm saying. From some Saudi person or some person who's got Bitcoin that's somehow valuable or whatever the fuck.
I think it would have to be a crypto person. They are the craziest spenders.
Well, and it's not even real money, so I'd spend that shit like water too, because what the fuck? But they could get $1 million, have the guy in the Royal Rumble. He could last as long as who was it, Bushwhacker Luke?
That's right. Yeah.
You have the 9-second record.
There's him.
I bet you the guy would set the record for the most chops on the way over the top rope, though.
Possibly. I mean, Daniel Puder was in that one year, so he may have won that award.
I think there'd be even more heat on this guy.
But they're selling everything at this point. And again, this will be a continuing story, but we have seen what we're told are major artists with major followings and major streams canceling tour dates, if not tours, because they can't sell their high-priced tickets. This will come for WWE, and it feels like until it does, they're going to just keep adding more and more ways for them to grab everything they can.
Until finally they've got 5 people in the world that are all billionaires and can spend about $500 million a year, and that's their fucking income.
Club WWE.
Over the head. Anyway, let's close out the program tonight, Brian, or today, or whatever period of time that you may be listening, you fine folks out there in podcast land, with the review or our thoughts on the Von Erichs documentary part 2 that's been on, oh God, now what network have they, this is the A&E, right?
This is indeed A&E biography. The name of the episode was Curse of the Von Erichs part 2.
And it's amazing the WWE has had some type of hand or finger or control over or whatever, some type of behind the scenes involvement in both the Von Erichs documentary and the Shawn Michaels documentary we just talked about, because the Shawn Michaels, as I said, probably it was the worst one so far that I've seen of anybody, and the Von Erichs may be the best.
And the Hulk Hogan one. They were involved in that too.
Well, there you go. But the Von Erichs one is still better than the Hulk Hogan one. But whereas the part 2, and this was a 2-hour episode, 4 hours, but whereas the part that I loved about the first part, or the first episode of the documentary, was that they captured territory wrestling and the crowds and the fans that are hooping and hollering and going crazy, and they're rock stars and they're playing the fucking ZZ Top, and it just captured that time period. And they had the footage and etc. And that was the thing that I liked about the first half, whereas the second half, unfortunately, is the other side of that. And while it was still fantastic, it wasn't fun to watch. And it focused so little on wrestling, because it really should have, because the family happenings were what led to the downfall in the wrestling, and you didn't want to go back and look at that sad atmosphere they had in 1988 after 1984. So this was good to watch, and because of the family dynamics, but it was not the cheerful part of the story.
No. That's why it was such a good idea that, and thankfully they were able to do a 2-parter, because it worked out and they had some time. They still left things out. Obviously, different people have different thoughts on different narratives, and we'll talk a little bit about the narrative around the parents later on. But I think part 1 kind of ended at a perfect place, because that is kind of where it ended. I mean, you could say the Gino and Chris feud, but in terms of them as people, it was a little bit before that, and I thought part 2 was really good too, and again, a lot of insight. There were a lot of years where there were a lot of reports about Kevin Von Erich here or there just saying wacky things and behaving in a wacky way, and this is the first time we've heard. I know there was another documentary on like one of the other cable channels, but I didn't see that one. But this is the first time I've seen really the women in his life, his children, his wife. Well, it wasn't his wife, really. It was Kerry's wife. But talking about what was happening for them, living in Dallas post world-class glory days. They left out the Fritz heart attack, the fake heart attack, which is an important part of the story, because I guess I'll just say it here. These 2 documentaries did more to make me sympathetic to Fritz Von Erich than anything ever. And a lot of people, the feedback I've seen, have been upset that Kevin labeled his mother as weak, that they didn't defend her, that, Fritz is such a horrible guy and all they did was say good things about him. But, obviously there are different sides to everyone, and family sees people differently than strangers. But they did leave out the Fritz fake heart attack, which, in terms of what he was thinking at that time, was taking advantage of the tragedies that had happened. And I thought that was an important thing that they left out.
Well, and you could do a whole documentary just on the downfall of the business at the same time as the family was having the downfall. And Fritz at that point was desperate, because I think he knew that he'd lost it. He wasn't going to get this back, because, and we'll go through this because they start again, after Kerry's big victory, but the difference in 84 and 85 in the stadium versus 86 and 87, and Lance Peterson on Twitter tweeted they ran 88. I forgot about that. They had some triple cage of doom business.
Yeah, the same thing you guys did at the Bash.
And don't say you guys like I was involved in that.
The same thing you came up with.
My company, my company did it. But nevertheless, I mean, all you could see was empty seats all through the stadium. It was a giant crash because the people had believed so much. You saw that emotion captured. They believed in the Von Erichs and believed that they were living through them. They were their heroes. They were the bigger stars than the individual cowboys. And then the tragedy, they all banded together and they came out and they saw Kerry win it. But then, unfortunately, with more tragedy starting to come every time, some of the fans saw through it as like, oh, they weren't what we thought that they were. Other of the fans never saw through it, but it became such a downer for them that they turned away from it. But it was from 86 to 88 was almost a free fall.
And they brought up bringing in Ricky Vaughn, Lance Vaughn, and making him Lance Von Erich.
Brought up is a good description because that was about it.
Yeah, but they didn't talk about the other side of it, which was Fritz going on TV and admitting that they lied, that they made up a family member who was then main eventing for one of the competitor promotions.
For the opposition, with Ken Mantell.
For Ken Mantell, that's right. Yeah. So, I mean, there were things that were in here that were important to the story, but some things that were left out in terms of explaining why they lost a lot of the mystique even as the tragedies were happening.
Well, let's start where this episode started. And Michael Hayes had a good line at the beginning. Everybody thought it would last forever. With the Freebirds and the Von Erichs and the big run, and it's going to be. And because remember, all those guys, we talked about the guys in Mid-South in 1984, 85 that were all in their 20s, and then the Freebirds were in their 20s, except for Buddy Roberts. And all these guys, they thought it was going to, because they may have been wrestling fans growing up, but I was never of the category of people that thought that it would last forever because I had watched the business and the different territories and come and go, and I'd seen Sheik and Bruiser fucking die. When you lose it, there's a point of no return, right? I'm not saying I was a goddamn genius at 20-something, but I never thought that it will never be over, right? I was, we could fuck this up. Or like in 87 when the booking was going all over the place and they'd bought all the territories. I was like, but these guys,
it's funny when you think about it. A lot of it was centered around Dallas being dead and everyone trying to make Dallas the center. Bill Watts went there and then Crockett.
Yeah. But nevertheless, the point is they're young, they're stars, everybody's happy. And they showed Karl Malone and the sports anchors on TV that Texas was crazy about the Von Erichs. They did the Pizza Inn commercial that was played everywhere in the state. And then this was a big deal that they glossed over. Then they went to Israel where Mike was injured. And so when he came back, nothing about it, for whatever reason. And I can explain how it happened, but not necessarily why it happened. I said when we talked about the previous program that the Channel 39 in Dallas that started the World Class program from the Sportatorium that was syndicated all around the country, right, to local stations, they were part of the Christian Broadcasting Network or fed some of their stations or carried their programming, whatever. That's how Fritz got hooked up with it originally. And they had some kind of connection where they put world-class wrestling on television in, I can't remember now, but apparently a good time slot. And it became the most popular television program in Israel. And this is not bullshit. Brian, please tell people I'm not lying to them.
Oh, no. Like the Von Erichs became a big deal in Israel. Kevin Von Erich, to this day, is kind of a minor sports celebrity in Israel. I believe his last match was in Israel. And
yeah,
apparently at that time, you never believe these things totally. There wasn't no crime when the Beatles played Ed Sullivan, but it did drop. Apparently, the battling between the two sides would cease for a little while when World Class aired on TV every week.
Well, that was a tale that was being told, but to be honest...
Bill Mercer's an honest man.
But no, I was there, and when they were talking about it amongst themselves, Bronco Lubitsch or people in the office or whatever, that I don't know their political hierarchy in Israel, but the high muckety muck of such and such was going to be meeting with Kevin and Carrie when they flew over to do the press thing, and it was a big fucking deal, right? And if you notice, they said it was August 1985 on the graphic here. I'll accept that because I didn't go, because there were three things that had me in the midnight, but Bobby and Dennis give our notice and go to Crockett. One was our Texas Stadium payoff. Two was Crockett getting on TBS. And three was they'd been saying, we're all going to Israel. And we were all three like, well, fuck you. You can go to fucking Israel. We went to Boston. That was a nice, cool little trip. But none of the three of us were excited about going to Israel because they were having some kind of goddamn conflict with somebody in the Middle East over there at that time.
Oh, yeah. Always.
And this was, well, exactly. It was Tuesday, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh, this is going to make the headlines. This is a big thing. And they're bringing us over. I'm thinking, well, this will be a high profile way for some of these fucking terrorists to goddamn get even with the United States or something. So we called Dusty and said, hey, Dust, we could be finishing up anytime. So we were done the first week of July. They went in August. Anyway.
Skandar Akbar said, call me Ray.
Yeah. Good old Jimmy Weber. But anyway, that's where Mike separated his shoulder. And I was watching this when we were actually in Atlanta working for Crockett when they were airing the Joe Pedicino's wrestling block. So I was seeing these TVs. He came back to America to have surgery on the separated shoulder. It got infected. He got toxic shock, which again at the time had been related in some fashion. It was it had been an epidemic for some reason among women because of sanitary products. I don't know. So this was like the oddest thing that had ever happened to a pro wrestler. And the doctor said he's one of the sickest patients that I'd ever seen. He had 107-degree fever, kidney and organ failure. And again, the fans were calling the hospital. They were like saying, we got 100 calls an hour. They were offering to donate organs. This is still where the fan base was in Dallas at that time. Like, oh my God. And the doctor's son told him, if Mike Von Erich dies, the whole world is going to hate you. So he was in the hospital for a month and he made it miraculously, and he was never the same. And you could, because we had worked with him. I didn't like hang around with him for hours, but we had worked with him and been in the locker room with him in January through June. And what I was looking at when they brought him out at the Cotton Bowl, or when they put him back on television just to speak about his recovery, there was a big, big difference. The eyes, the manner of speech, no inflection. And now they claim that's where they claim since Mike was down too, they brought in Lance, but that's way too early, isn't it? They brought in Lance because, go ahead.
It's funny with Lance. Lance came in 85, right around this period of time. He was at the Cotton Bowl at ringside. They introduced him before the hair versus hair. It was hair versus hair versus hair match with Gino and Chris. But when David died, they started talking about him on TV. before he was cast in that role or anything.
That's right.
They would say, Waldo von Erich's son of Lance. They would bring up the fact that it was Fritz's brother in kayfabe, because that was in Dallas years before, that it was his son, and they were obviously looking for someone. And you don't know what prompted the original thought. Was it just that David's gone? Was it that Kerry's going to go to Hollywood? Whatever was happening at that time, there was a first mention of him in early 84. And then they brought him from Portland, and they introduced him as Lance Von Erich, even though apparently he was a local boy, and his name was Rick Vaughn. It's one thing to make a fake Von Erich and bring in Tom Pritchard or someone who's not from the area, but when you bring in...
but that's what they were saying. He had people that like knew him from his high school days or whatever coming to the matches going, "Hey, Ricky Vaughn." But they glossed over that whole thing in 2 minutes with Lance. But besides Kevin saying, "Well, I hated that idea."
Yeah, that was one of the big mystique killers, and they kind of didn't explain how that hurt them. With Mike Von Erich, if I could ask you two questions. One, what do you think when you see the clip of him getting injured? It's him kicking Gino, and his shoulder pops out on that. It's always the oddest injury to me. And second, when you see how this was presented and everything you witnessed firsthand, do you think that Mike Von Erich was forced into the business by his dad? Or do you think Mike Von Erich wanted to do what his brothers were doing and hang out with his brothers?
Mike Von Erich wanted to do what his brothers were doing and hang out with his brothers. He wanted his dad to be proud of him. Fritz may have loved his sons, but he had, well, I was about to say he had eyes, but goddamn, those glasses were thick as Coke bottles. But he could see that Mike was not Kerry physically, or Kevin maybe athletically, or David mentally with the psychology of the thing. But he was not going to tell Mike, "No, you can't do it at all," because in the territory at that time, if they'd all stayed healthy and Mike hadn't got hurt, Mike could have worked there for the next 5 fucking years on the cards, and it would have worked, but he wouldn't have been in demand to go anywhere else. But you know what I'm saying? If all things had been equal, Fritz put him in the ring, and the people in the business could see, and a lot of these smarter fans and just the more cynical fans could see. But there were obviously there were people voting to donate his fuck organs for him, right? So some of the fans were like, "Yay, it's Mike Von Erich." They didn't see. Do you see? Do you see?
I see.
So that's the thing, is that it wasn't that Fritz was making him. My God, he wanted to. He wanted to be a wrestler. What this South Texas spot show? It was Mike and somebody against Bobby and Dennis. And you know how Bobby, when he was a heel, he would crouch down and try to sneak up on the fucking baby face like Tojo used to do, right? He'd kind of crouch down and he'd have the hands up and the little claws, and he'd be trying to, he scared Mike Mike turned around, "Oh shit," from behind, right? When he was trying to sneak up on him, and Mike hadn't, and then as they went to lock up, Bobby crouched down, so Mike crouched down, and Bobby crouched down a little more. He crouched, they were just doing a full squat in the middle of the ring. Mike just didn't know what the fuck he was doing, but he was trying to imitate everybody and figure out what was going on.
But right after this period of time, the Cotton Bowl, Lance Von Erich's brought in. Mike Von Erich is brought out in a car to wave to people, and you didn't really know how bad it was yet. You knew he was skinny, but he had been in the hospital and everything. You didn't realize how fried he was. And then right after that, and I only bring this up because in terms of where the crowds went and the faith in the family and the company, February 86, Gino Hernandez dies. Yeah. That's all over the news. And also he's in the middle of a feud with he just blinded Chris Adams on TV. And then he died.
Yes.
Fritz leaves the NWA. May not seem like a big deal, but if you've been recognizing a world title lineage
for the past 20 years.
Yeah, at least. if not more than that, technically.
It's just Fritz himself or his son's challenging for the same thing for 20 years.
Yeah, the Dallas office, always, since the war in 53 and 54 was an NWA town, all of a sudden, we're not in the NWA. Our top guy will now be the world champion, whether it's Rick Rude or Black Bart. There were some interesting picks. And then Kerry's motorcycle accident in June of 86. If you look at the year after you left World Class, about 6 months after you left is when they hit the wall and just everything fell apart. And now they have no Kerry Von Erich. The deaths are not just limited to the Von Erichs, and they're in the news, and it's drugs. I mean, everyone knew with Gino, it came out right away, it was cocaine. I mean, that wasn't a hidden thing. So just everything happened, and that's the difference between the reaction to Mike Von Erich being hospitalized and Mike Von Erich's suicide, which was quickly... They changed the Texas Stadium show quickly to be the David and Mike Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions. It was, it was not handled the best way.
Well, and it wasn't fun anymore for a lot of people. But that's it. With Kerry's accident, he ran into the back of a stationary police car on his motorcycle. But suddenly he's fucked up, but they put Mike back in the ring. But where Mike was awkward and gawky, but energetic and, anxious to please, now you have awkward, gawky, frail, and slow. And Kerry's, again, comes back too soon. And at least they didn't tell the story of he re-broke his ankle this time because he got up and wanted in the hospital out of bed and wanted a cheeseburger and put weight on it. That was a story one time. But he had several operations that wouldn't heal. We're not going to go through the whole goddamn medical procedure at this point, but they amputated the foot. And now we know hiding it was definitely Fritz's idea.
Yeah.
Because it's always been, obviously, I've said, my God, he could have made a fortune literally out of that and gotten so much sympathy at the level that he was able to come back at the high level while being an amputee, if they could have pushed that. But it wasn't even Kerry thinking that bad. It was Fritz making him ashamed of it by making him hide it.
Yeah, even his wife said she thought he should do it. And this is the first time I've ever heard Bruce Pritchard or anyone from WWE say that Vince wanted him to do it. I never heard that before. And same thing, if it is indeed true, Fritz put the kibosh on it. It didn't happen.
Yeah. And that probably cost him, more mental issues, which got worse on drugs, and they sent him to rehab. But it did. Fritz, again, they said Fritz said the press will get a hold of it, and they took him out of rehab. Did you notice that Kerry's wife, Kathy, calls him Mr. Atkinson?
Yes, that was noticeable throughout this entire thing.
Whereas Kevin's daughter is like, oh, my pawpaw, or whatever her, pet name for grandpa was. And everybody else, it was like Mr. Atkinson. And the granddaughter said granddad enabled, the kids because he loved them so much. He bailed them out of jail. And there was other times we talked about, there was issues that Fritz had pull, and, the average person would be reported for something, but he was able to keep it quiet.
What do you think?
But then Mike, well, go ahead.
Well, just again, as they were presenting this and showing footage, especially later in his life when he wasn't well, of him with his grandkids. But with Fritz, for years you would hear the narrative that people warned him, Bill Watts, various people, about his kids, and he blew
Gary
it off.
Hart.
We said it last time, maybe he was just no-selling it. It sounds like he really was, whether he's guilty of enabling them or not, he really was like a grief-stricken, hurt father whenever they got in trouble, and he tried to do what he could to help them, but it wasn't like, don't worry, like Hogan and Nick Hogan, don't worry about it. Everyone else is an asshole. It was, embarrassment. It was, not an easy thing. And that changes, I think, the narrative a little bit around Fritz.
Well, and the whole Von Erich MO has always the whole family. When Kevin was living in Hawaii they had a family compound where all the family lived together, the kids, the grandkids, or whatever the extended family is. And you see all these family get-togethers on video going back to when the Fritz's and Doris's kids were kids. And they've always enjoyed being around multiple generations, but there's been so much trouble. And that was Mike again. That was the next thing. He had obviously had brain damage from the fever for so long. And he had the depression and the drinking and the personality changes and got arrested again. And felt like he shamed the family and went out in the woods and took a bunch of pills. And now this is starting at Doris because, she's gone through this whole thing with these wrestling fuckers for 30 years now. But then another story where Kevin backed over his kid in the driveway with his car accidentally and ruptured her liver, but she was okay. But that's where Kevin was saying, I wrote this down because he said he wanted to fight the devil. And he had a seizure and saw apparitions and thought they were demons. I mean, I guess a seizure, the definition of a seizure is, strange things are going to happen in your head, but that's one thing about Kevin and their fan. They believe in those type of things.
Was he fighting the devil when Bobby Fulton had to save his life at the Sportatorium?
Well,
right, that was a seizure, wasn't it?
Well, I wasn't there, so they gave him CPR. Tommy and Bobby both were there because it was a 6-man tag. But I don't know if they ever determined what caused it, but he did whatever he did. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, you bring up Kevin talking about his battle with the devil here. I'm not really into religious shows or, televangelists, whatever it is, but I have to say, he's one of the most compelling speakers on religion I've ever seen because he's so into it. You believe he believes. And
yes,
it's kind of incredible to watch.
Well, and see, what you said, I was going to make a comment on something you said. Fritz is dealing with this or whatever responsibility. Yeah. Kevin in another place said, well, I had to keep going to provide for the family. And I've got to, because he's doing the Bible speak type of thing. Where I'm a man, it's my job to take care of the weak, the children and the women. It's like he's back in the Pilgrim days, the weak and the women. It's his job. That's a Bible kind of thing. And so this whole family probably the men had trouble mentally not being able to take care of the women as they were meant to be taken care of back in the Puritan era.
I said to my family, gosh, we should all move to Bethlehem.
But then they didn't have any room at the Bethlehem Motor Inn. But anyway, Kerry ended up having to go to the WWE. He had got back in the ring by that point, but Fritz's heart was out of everything. And they just said on the documentary here, he sold out. And it would again be another documentary with the whole Jerry Jarrett, USWA, Max Andrews, global syndication, blah, 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 that Kevin was in and out of being involved in for the next 4 or 5 years or whatever. But for the sake of this story, the business went to shit. And Fritz sold his part, and the boys were moving back into Fritz's house. So Kerry has to go to
Fritz's compound because Fritz had trailers on the property or whatever it was.
And I was going to say, but you wouldn't live on a trailer out in the middle of the desert in Texas on Fritz von Erich's property, but they were his kids. It was probably, but still they were aspiring to more. So Kerry goes to work for Vince, but Chris von Erich, the youngest one, he had asthma. He had taken medication since he was like 12 years old and stunted his growth. He was like 5'5", I think. And he was depressed because he was left out. His bones were brittle because of the medication, but still. Now, I think at this point, Fritz was out of the picture by the time they actually debuted Chris, was he not?
He was, yes.
I think at this point, that's what Percy Pringle, I wish, bless him, he was still here. We could ask him because he was down there at this time. But I think at that point, they were just saying, fuck it. He wants to be a wrestler and we need a Von Erich and anything to get any kind of interest, that type of thing, right? It's not saying that, and Kevin still had some decision-making abilities, and what's he going to tell his brother no? And I think they worked him in with a manager angle or an angle against the manager with Percy, right? And did some shit right.
With Mike, they did it with Akbar, and with him, they did it with Percy.
So it wasn't like that they knew he was never going to be a superstar, but he was, again, let's let the kid, maybe it'll mean something here. They didn't know that he was going to break his arm pretty much as soon as he fucking got in the ring. And then, of course, about that time, Mike, or obviously not Mike, but Kevin's daughter said that after Mike and Kerry, or Mike and, I'll get it right in a second, Mike and David, etc., that they were always afraid, the kids were, I'll try this again, that if the grown-ups got too depressed, they would commit suicide. Can you imagine that from a kid's standpoint? So, point being, blah, blah, blah. Doris then divorces Fritz because now she blamed him. And that's where Kevin was saying, my mom was weak, God bless her. And she was weak. I think she just fed the fuck up. But, again, Kevin is broken up about it, but he still takes up for Fritz. So now Kevin's pretty much retired. David's gone. Mike's gone. Kerry's in the WWF, but he is, again, we've talked about it before in the past on the show here, where they had such plans for him that they could have done if he didn't have his problems, whether the missing the family, the drugs that he was already on, the pain of keeping up with doing this with one foot. And so they said WWE sent him to Betty Ford and then apparently fired him when that didn't work. And that's when he got arrested again with cocaine and a probation violation. And
wasn't it a prescription thing? He had fake prescriptions.
You know what? Well, they said cocaine here, but he had cocaine on him when they arrested him for the fake prescriptions.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
What obviously, but this again, Jesus H. Christ, everybody had said in stories before that, Kerry knew he was probably going back to prison, the probation violation. He didn't want to do that. But did you hear the story ever that his wife had said he called her to have lunch and wanted to get back together? And she didn't want to. And that's what he told her. You're going to be better off without me. Oh, don't say that. And that's when he killed himself. Jesus Christ.
I have heard in the past that he was really upset that his wife wouldn't get back to him. That was kind of.
But I didn't know he left the lunch and right. Okay.
No, never heard that before ever, but I've never heard her interviewed before.
But anyway, and then they kind of brought everybody up to date on the kids of the kids. Lacey became a wrestler for a while and thankfully moved on from that. The daughter Holly has a nice lake house. Apparently, that's that was a nice joint there.
Nice demeanor. She just seemed like a really pleasant person.
Yeah, and of course, Fritz had just gotten cancer aggressively, and just within months died.
They showed the newspaper. I was in Dallas the day he died, or the next day in the newspaper, because I was switching planes to go to Amarillo for the Terry Funk 50 Years in Amarillo show.
Yeah.
And I'm in the Dallas airport, and there on the front page of the paper is the death of Fritz von Erich. I got the paper still.
And that's when Kevin decided, hey, let's go to Hawaii. And the whole family went out there. And they didn't even mention Ross and Marshall his sons becoming wrestlers. I can't believe they said,
why?
They gave Lacey a mention.
Yeah.
Well, shit. Yeah, the WWE.
Because this is WWE and they're signed to AEW, right? Or they were. I don't know.
Well, they're not in the family, so they don't. The WWE family, that is, so they don't get mentioned. But they're after 20 years of them all out there, and holy shit. Because Kevin just wants to be outside and barefoot in nature. So I'm sure that was fantastic, but they were isolated out there. And that's really Ross and Marshall didn't get a lot of reps in during their prime athletic years because they were 2,000 miles away from any booking. But now they've moved back to Bernie, Texas. That's where Brody used to live. And they're out on this ranch again with all the fish and the game and the wilds and the trucks and the
roller skating room
and the pawpaw patch and everything. Apparently they have I guess they bought it and have taken it over, but that roller skating room, there's a room there that the public can rent and have functions of whatever function you have in a room like that. As part of their big spread they got there. But it was a sad, obviously, second part to the story, but equally as well done. And I thought this was there's things left out and you'd had to go 6 hours, as we've talked about. But this was the most honest, mainstream, major, well done, polished up look at the whole thing that I think we've seen all in all.
I completely agree. And I think I've seen maybe 5 different documentaries about them, if I really think about it. Legends of World Class, Triumph and Tragedy, I think it was, of World Class, the WWE DVD, Dark Side of the Ring. There was that other one, and then this. So there's been several. I thought they did a good job. And yeah, it's a sad part too. And it's a ton of sadness that they deal with. But I think almost it was a positive ending just because you're seeing the next generation, and now they have kids, and they seem rather well adjusted, and they're not running from anything. They understand it. They all seem to be very happy together, which is a family thing for the Von Erichs. So I thought it ended on a real positive note, and I'm glad also that clearly they felt disappointed and upset with the Iron Claw.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad they had this opportunity to kind of straighten out a few things about that, too, because, you and I were kind of disappointed with that movie as well, and we weren't in the family and could only imagine what they think.
Yeah. Yeah, and they got the opportunity here to say, hey, it was a fine movie, but it wasn't anything like the real story, which we illustrated it wasn't. So, and like you said with Kevin, I'm glad he's happy and contented and still, he walks around a little, bent over every once in a while because of the wrestling days, but at least at his age, he's still ambulatory and out there jumping into lakes and shit. So, and
like Michael Jackson,
like said,
he's climbing trees.
Yeah.
You don't see
but
that.
like you said, he believes what he believes, but he's good at believing it. And he's an upstanding person. I guess it could have turned out a lot worse.
Because you've seen other wrestlers get into religion and they talk about it, and not to say they don't believe it, what they're saying, but they give a very polished wrestling promo, babyface wrestling promo, but about religion.
You could trade water filtration system or aluminum siding for the subject of religion, and the delivery would be somewhat similar, but not with Kevin. He's like one of those old-fashioned Western fucking preachers in the Western movies.
He closes his eyes and he clenches his fist, and you believe him. You're like, oh my God, he's feeling that fight with the devil right now.
I just wanted to fight him. All right, I guess the listeners, if we don't get the fuck out of here, are going to want to fight us, aren't they?
I don't know. I think they would prefer we do like an 8-hour show, but I think we need to stop because I have to get back to editing, and we have a WWE pay-per-view, and then we have to come back and record all about the pay-per-view and fun.
So many fun things. But folks, thank you very much for your support, to your indulgence, your patience, and all the other things that you have perpetrated over the last few hours for this program. We will be back soon. And until then, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.